Of course you can. And these are excellent questions. I like the fact. Excellent. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
Literally, this is my kitchen space.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, this.
Okay. Can I go to the restroom real quick?
Yes.
Can I go to the restroom real quick?
Yeah. Hurry up. Where the yellow folder? What happened to the yellow folder?
Hello, where are you? Is there any way you can go get the literature from someone asked me?
Yes.
Thank you, dear.
Good morning. I like your sign.
Thank you. I'm very well. How are you?
Is he back?
Have a good one, DJ.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. If we could ask everyone to take their seats, we are going to get started. And because we are filming and streaming, we're going to ask that the side conversations be taken out of the room or not at all. So, what was the plan was to have the Ward 7 youth, the Ward 7 council member representing for the Marionberry Youth Leadership to do this introduction. I am not her. I am not a youth, even though I'm young at heart. So I'm going to act as though I was her and read this quick little introduction for our interim chair. So apparently I'm dialing somebody's number. I'm getting ready to start. Good morning. I am Tiffany Brown. I am the second vice chair of the Ward 7 Dems. I am here to introduce our interim chair to everyone this morning. Dr. Delia Hasil is the interim chair of the Ward 7 Dems, and she's going to give us opening remarks and rules of the day. Before that, let me tell you a little something about her. She has been in Washington for nearly 25 years and calls herself an honorary Washingtonian. In addition to serving in the Ward 7 Dems, she is an ANC commissioner representing ANC 7E06. Dr. Hasil lives in the Marshall Heights neighborhood with her husband and 3 children. At this time, I'm going to present to you all, Dr. Delia Hasil. We can clap a little better for her. A little more. We're in church. It's okay. It's all right.
Awesome. So good morning, everyone. Oh, I know you all can do better than that. I'm just getting over a cold, so let's see if we can do a little bit better than that. Good morning, Ward 7. Awesome. Good morning and welcome to our Ward 7 Council Candidate Forum and Straw Poll. It's truly inspiring to see so many residents of Ward 7 gathered here this morning, demonstrating our strength and vibrancy, demonstrating the strength and vibrancy of our community. Firstly, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our sponsors and partners whose generous support has made this event possible. Our sponsors are All City HVAC Services, J9 Sound, the DC Democratic Party, the DC Young Democratic Party, and our gracious host, Ryland Epworth United Methodist Church. Let's give them a round of applause. Their commitment to fostering civic engagement within our community is both admirable and appreciated. I also want to give a super shout out to our planning committee and volunteers. So if there are any volunteers and planning committee members in the room, can you all please raise your hand? If you can look around the room, let's give them a round of applause. Trust me, without our volunteers, this event would not be possible. And so all of our volunteers are wearing red name tags. And so if you need assistance, you can connect with one of them. They should be able to help you out. So civic engagement is the cornerstone of a healthy democracy. It's what shapes our community, influences our daily lives, and secures a better future for us all. By being here today, you are playing a crucial role in that process. Your presence signifies a willingness to listen, learn, and make informed decisions about the leaders who will represent this great ward. This forum is more than just a gathering. It's a testament to the power of a collective action and the shared belief in the importance of having a voice in the decisions that affect our community. I also want to express my sincere gratitude to the candidates participating in today's straw poll. Your dedication to serving Ward 7 and your eagerness to engage with residents are commendable. This forum provides a unique opportunity for us all to hear directly from you about your visions, your plans, and how you intend to address those issues that matter most to our community. It's a chance for open dialogue, for questions to be asked and answered, and for meaningful connections to be forged. So with that, let's give a round of applause to our candidates, guys. These are the ones who are putting it all on the line for us. And to the residents of Ward 7, today is about you. It's about making your voices heard and taking an active role in shaping the future of this great ward. As you listen to the candidates, I encourage you to think critically about the issues that are most important to you and your families. Consider what it will take to address those issues and who among the candidates you believe is best equipped to lead us forward. In closing, again, I want to thank everyone for your commitment to our community and the democratic process. Let's make this forum a constructive and insightful experience for all involved. And in order to do that, right, we have a couple of housekeeping items. Excuse me. First, this forum is being live streamed to ensure that those individuals who are unable to attend in person are still able to participate. So it will be critical to minimize all background noises and sounds. So I encourage everyone to please pull out your phone right now. Pull out your phones. I'm bad at it as well. And please put your phones on Do Not Disturb. We want to make sure, again, because this is being recorded and filmed, that we don't have any background noise. Also, if you need to take a call or if you have some conversations that you'd like to have, we ask that you quietly dismiss yourselves and take your call in the hallway. Also, we want you to keep in mind that each candidate on this panel took a leap of faith to run for this office, which is not an easy feat. So please let us remain respectful and poised throughout the duration of the forum. And so I know that you all did not come here to hear me talk. And so without further ado, I am going to introduce our dynamic speaker. All right. So let me pull up. And apologize here. I thought I had it pulled up. Okay, sorry, 1 second. Technology can be your best friend or your worst enemy, as I'm sure you all can attest to that. So give me 1 quick second and we're going to pull up I'll pull up the bio to share more about our dynamic speaker this morning. Okay, and my laptop is just not collaborating with me this morning. So let's see here. 1 second. I'll read from my phone. When in doubt, you always have at least 2 devices to help you out. All right, that's how we're going to play that today. All right. Sorry about that. And I did have it printed, but I left it. All right, here we go. So Mr. James Wright is a resident of Ward 1. He's a journalist for the Washington Informer newspaper, and he serves as an at-large member of the Seat Pleasant City Council. I didn't know that, so thank you for serving. Mr. Wright is a staff writer for the Washington Informer newspaper. He has worked with the Informer since December 2018 and wrote freelance articles for the newspaper from October 2009 through October 2014. Wright has been a staff writer and city editor for the Washington Afro-American newspaper, covering Capitol Hill and the White House and sports from April 1993 through July 2000. He worked at the Washington Post sports copy desk from July 2000 to August 2005. He returned to the Afro in August 2005 as a general assignment reporter until August 2009. Wright has traveled extensively to Africa, the United Kingdom, Rome, Libya, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Ghana. Let's give it a round for all of those places. Let's just give that a round of applause. That's amazing. He's traveled to all those places as a journalist, and he has interviewed notables such as Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, U.S. Associate Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Vice President Al Gore, South African President Thabo Mbeki, and many African-American leaders, including members of the Congressional Black Caucus. He has received numerous awards, as a result of his work, and appeared on numerous radio and television shows. He is a member of the Society of Professional Journalists and the National Association of Black Journalists. Wright was selected by the Seat Pleasant City Council for the at-large position on October 10th, 2022, and was sworn in on October 24th, 2022. In Seat Pleasant, Wright serves as the vice chairman of the CPAC, a support for the city's police department. He has served as president of the Seat Pleasant Citizens Association and as a member of the Seat Pleasant University of Maryland Health Partnership. Wright is a member of the 202 Coalition led by Senator Joanne Benson. Wright was initiated into the Eta Gamma chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity in spring 1984. He serves presently as the associate editor to the Sphinx for the Omicron Lambda Alpha chapter and is the longest serving member of the executive board in the same position. Wright facilitated the OLA show, the only Divine Nine chapter that has its own television show. He has served as a delegate to the Baltimore and Indianapolis General Conventions and the 2021 Eastern Regional Convention. In June 2022, OLA chapter awarded him its highest honor, the Leon Gordon Order of the Sphinx Award, and renamed it President's Award, the James Wright President's Award. Wright has worshiped at Asbury United Methodist Church since 1996 and presently serves as the church historian and sits on the regional historical organizations for the Baltimore-Washington Conference. Wright is a native of Austin, Texas, holds a bachelor's degree in business management from Prairie View A&M University in 1986, but his greatest inspiration is his 91-year-old mother, Helen Porter Wright, who grew up in the segregated Austin, Texas, to become financially secure in her own right. You can follow him on both Instagram and Twitter. And without further ado, let's give it up for our moderator, Mr. James Wright.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is fantastic to be here on this rainy, wet morning, but it shows the dedication that you all have in terms of Ward 7 and in the city. On behalf of the Washington Informer newspaper, which is led by our modern day Ida B. Wells, Denise Rolock Barnes. I'm very happy to accept this invitation from the Ward 7 Democrats, a very, very influential organization in this city. And I look forward to moderating this panel. I will say this is Ryland Epworth, United Methodist Church. As Dr. Delia previously mentioned, I am a member of Asbury, which is downtown 11th and K, and we call ourselves Asburyans. So you can make out of that whatever you want, but I am in the Ryland Epworth family. So I will read the rules, and then we will proceed in terms of the forum. The forum rules have been shared with all the candidates, but we'll hit a few highlights just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. The format will include an opening statement from each candidate for 1.5 minutes. Next, we will have 5 rounds of discussions about key issues facing the ward and a lightning round comprised of questions that will require a yes/no response. The first round is on economic mobility. Then we'll have a lightning round. The second round is on education, and on the third round is on public safety / youth development. Our fourth round will include pre-submitted questions from the audience, and our last round will allow candidates to cross-examine each other, meaning candidates will be given the opportunity to ask one question of another candidate with a 1-minute response time and a 30-second rebuttal by the questioning candidate. Now, we don't need to be Johnny Cochran. All we need is just to get some good, solid answers. We'll wrap up with each candidate giving, a 1.5 minute closing statement. Okay, any questions from the candidates about the forum? All right, hearing and seeing none, let's begin. We will start with the opening statements. Let me start way in the furthest away. Mr. Deloach, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Good morning, my fellow residents and stakeholders of Ward 7. I am Dwight Sinclair Deloach Jr., and I come before you today as a Democrat candidate for Ward 7 DC Council. I am a native Washingtonian. For 18 years, I proudly call Ward 7 my home. I have been blessed to be raised by 2 wonderful parents, my mother, Robin Deloach, and my late father, Dwight Deloach Sr. I attended Friendship Collegiate Academy for high school and pursued my higher education at Delaware State University, obtaining my bachelor's and master's degree in business administration. I am a proud family small business owner in the facility maintenance field, and I've provided jobs for DC residents. I previously served on the DC Public Charter School Parent and Alumni Leadership Council and participating in discussions to improve our District of Columbia charter schools. In my former role as a family support worker, I aided Ward 7 residents and helped them during the COVID-19 pandemic. I helped numerous families apply for DC emergency rental assistance and ensure families remained in their homes. If elected as the next Ward 7 DC Council member, I pledge to restore hope by championing policies that uplift our community. My campaign pillars are affordable and equitable housing, public safety, economic empowerment, revitalization of education system, and quality food access. It is time for Ward 7 to be recognized, and together we will deliver impact in Ward 7. I look forward to answering your questions in today's forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Denise Reed.
Good morning, neighbors. My name is Denise Reed. I'm a native Washingtonian. I'm the daughter of Sergeant Harold Reed and Joan Jackson Reed. I live in the home that my grandparents purchased when the year I was born, actually. So I've been a resident really since before we had home rule. I look forward to serving the community. My main focus will be on criminal justice, public safety. I am very concerned about all of us, our senior citizens, people going back and forth to their cars, to the grocery store. We really need to get a hand on public safety. And before we can have proper economic development, folks have to feel safe to bring their businesses into our community. I hope that we can foster an environment where everyone will feel safe. Community policing is important. We need to add citizens to that community policing. Perhaps my idea is that citizens will walk with the police as they're going about our neighborhoods and fostering a good relationship between citizens and the police. A lot of people don't want to talk about what they've seen, what's been going on, but if folks are able, is that me?
You got time.
That was 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
just wrap up real quick.
I hope I can get your vote. I'll tell you more later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Valerio Johnson.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Valerio VJ Johnson, and I'm a candidate for the Ward 7 DC City Council as a Democrat. I'm running to impact you, the Ward 7 resident, the Ward 7 Democrat, by being bigger, better, and bolder. What you can expect from me as your council member is an engaging, responsive, and accountable council member with an office that will respond to you if I don't respond to you first. As I look out here, I see a number of you that I know and a number of you that know me. You know me from the history of the work that I've done, not just here as a Ward 7 Democrat serving as the precinct captain for 111 many years ago, not from being here as an ANC commissioner and serving as a chair, right? Not from being the Hillcrest president and impacting Skyland and giving out scholarships to Ward 7 residents across the board, not just Hillcrest. You know me because I'm capable, I'm competent, and I'm committed to impacting you, the Ward 7 residents, where you are in your neighborhood. You know my story, 2900 block of Minnesota Avenue, Nelson Place, impacting community, organizing young people, and making a difference way before I had a title. My name is Valerio VJ Johnson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Fleming, Nate Fleming.
Good morning, Ward 7. My name is Nate Fleming, and I'm running for Ward 7 Council because I believe that I have the educational and professional experience to deliver results for you and make sure that Ward 7 gets more than its fair share. So what do I mean by lived experience? I grew up in this ward, single mother household, Greenway Apartments. I live here in Deanwood with my 2 infant twins and my wife. I was carjacked at gunpoint at the corner of Minnesota Avenue and Nanny Helen Burroughs. So I understand firsthand the public safety challenges we face. What do I mean by education? It changed the trajectory of my life. Took me from Southeast to Morehouse College, went to law school at Berkeley, full tuition scholarship to study government at Harvard. I earned my doctorate at Penn this spring in higher education. So thank you. I'll take a clap for that. So what I believe is when you have opportunities like that, you have a responsibility. You have an obligation to come back to your community and try to create opportunities for others. And that's exactly what I've done. And that's my professional experience. When I was 25, I was elected to be DC's shadow representative of the Congress, where we helped to get DC statehood passed in the House of Representatives for the first time. For 5 years, I worked at the council as a legislative director, doing the exact work that I'll be elected to do as your council member, navigating legislation, the budget, zoning, oversight, the comprehensive plan, negotiating with developers, constituent services. So I look forward to telling you more about my record and telling you more about my plans in this debate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A few housekeeping notes. Please cease all electronic activity during the forum, and that includes, of course, the candidates. And we will proceed. And let me just say, these are some excellent questions that have been prepared by Ms. Tiffany Brown. And that gives me less work to do, but that doesn't matter. This is a great question. And I would like Mr. Fleming to start to answer it because we'll go this way. According to the Department of Employment Services Labor and Economic Data as of 2023, the unemployment rate in Ward 7 was 8.3%, the second highest in the city, and double the rates of all other wards except Ward 5 and Ward 8. If elected as the Ward 7 council member, what specific measures would you implement to improve the social and economic well-being of individuals and families throughout Ward 7 and reduce the unemployment rate of Ward 7 residents? You have 2 minutes.
Excellent. So,
Wait, a minute and a half? You have a minute and a half. Go
okay.
ahead.
Well, excellent. I can't get everything fit in a minute and a half because there's a reason why our unemployment rate is double every ward. But I believe in investing in entrepreneurship. And I'm one of the few candidates that has a track record of delivering results for Ward 7 residents. I created a program as a legislative director called the Ward 7 Dream Grants Program. That program has put $1 million in the pockets of Ward 7 entrepreneurs with grants up to $10,000 to start their small business. So I believe that for many of our issues, people want more amenities in our ward. People want more jobs in our ward. We need to build from within. We need to build from the bottom up. And that's investing in entrepreneurship for Ward 7 residents to start opening small businesses to serve Ward 7 needs. In terms of jobs, I believe we should make the summer youth employment program year-round. In terms of our young adults that are disconnected under the age of 30, I believe in a guaranteed jobs program in infrastructure, the arts, and community work to help to build their employment. 1/3 of the residents in Ward 7 have graduated from college, but about the same number have done some college. So we need to make sure we have programs to make sure that Ward 7 residents can do the small work that they need to do to complete their degrees, because that will help them also be better equipped for jobs and economic development in this ward. Do I have more time? If I have more time, I believe in innovation. So we're going to put innovative incubators and accelerators throughout the wards. I believe in a network of opportunity centers to connect our young people and our residents to jobs, employment, and entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Mr. Johnson.
Let's look at Skyland as an example. The Hillcrest community and stakeholders put together a transformational project. That project enabled 1,000 Ward 7 residents and 1,000 Ward 7 and 1,000 Ward 7 and Ward 8 residents to be trained, to be employed. We need more economic development in Ward 7. There are a number of things that we can do, but the first things we must do is get these projects off the ground. Deanwood, the town center concept. Capitol Gateway, we got to get that off the ground. Fletcher Johnson, we got to get that off the ground. Here are all the opportunities in our ward that are stuck that we cannot benefit from because we need a different type of leader, a leader that will push the envelope and be bigger, better, bolder. Now, when I talked about Skyland and the work that we did as a community over there and how we trained and got 1,000 people jobs in zip codes 2019, 2020, 2032. The sad truth was only 18% of those people were Ward 7. Now, we don't want to just do the basic. We don't want to just say we have job training programs and people come out of there and they get a new resume. We have to attack the problem in the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Reed.
Neighbors, on January 11th, I retired from CSOSA, the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency, after 16 years. On January 12th, I filed my candidacy for this office. During my tenure at CSOSA, one of my major responsibilities was finding resources for our returning citizens. And I spearheaded an effort called Community Resource Day, a quarterly program where we brought agencies, community partners to the table in one place for returning citizens so they could hit the ground running when they return to our community. And I believe that's something to be implemented in Ward 7. Quarterly, we should bring the agencies, community partners, all the resources that are going to help our citizens with healthcare, employment, education, all of it, housing. bring them to one spot and let our citizens see what's available to them. Because many people can't always run downtown to various agencies, various community partners, but when we have them all in one place, it makes a big difference. We can help our neighbors thrive that way. And believe me, it has worked. I see some folks in here that have benefited from it, and I want to put it to work for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Mr. Deloach.
Yes, unlike some of my candidates here, I actually have experience with hiring DC residents. Like I said, I had a family small business. We actually was the recipient of the So Others May Eat Center of the Employment Employer of the Year Award in 2019 for our work. We're hiring DC residents, at-risk residents, and teaching them how to learn about the facility maintenance field. I have the experience with Skyland Workforce Center, hiring and teaching residents how to get upskilled. So when we talk about unemployment, we have to meet our residents where they are. We have to train them in fields that are expiring. So the work that the DOES Infrastructure Academy is a great start, but we also have to continue to look at our returning citizens. We actually partner with the Project Empowerment Program to hire and train residents that have been impacted by the employment and also incarceration, and training them. So we have to hit all residents. We have to make sure that we understand where residents' needs are, but also pipeline, apprenticeships. We talked about the education system. We have to provide apprenticeship programs so people that might not go to college, they still have an opportunity to get skilled in great careers. So when we talk about economic empowerment, when we talk about unemployment, we have to continue to invest in our residents. We can't cut programs with the Department of Employment Services. We have to train, we have to elevate, we have to empower our residents to make sure that they have a chance in our ward.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. The next question will have to do with education, and I will start with Mr. Johnson. According to the 2023 PARC data, only 18.8% of students in Ward 7 schools were performing at or above grade level in English language arts reading, and 8.9% in math. What measures would you implement to close the academic achievement gap and improve educational outcomes of Ward 7 residents?
The political answer is to invest in schools, right? And to put more money into schools. But the right answer is to make sure that parents and adults and guardians who are taking care of children are supported financially, and that they have the right environments to grow children, right? When we look at children, my son is right there, he's 9 years old. That child is with an adult 5 years before they get to the school. What are we doing to make sure that child is in a nurturing, supportive environment? Well, we know when children come from two parents, they have what? Twice the language. They have twice the words. They know how to interact differently. When they come from families, they know how to interact differently with people and other folks outside of their family. They learn a different set of skills. What we've been able to do in the District of Columbia was invest in a robust early childhood program. The DC's program is a national model when we are pouring resources into young people at age 3 and 4. That's what we need to do more of. We have to do more of the things that work, more of the things that are fundamental. Investing in parents, investing in adults who take care of children, grandparents, older siblings. Our children are coming from places where they are not being given the support that they need to thrive before they get to the schools. And then after they get to the school, in Ward 7, we'll do more community schools and throw more money into the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Reed?
Thank you. I think what really needs to be reinforced, to sort of piggyback on what Mr. Johnson said, is that it really needs to be stressed that the school day does not end at the end of the day when the school bell rings. Parents need to know. A lot of parents think that, you know, you went to school, you came home, you do your homework, and it's over. But they need to review that homework. They need to really be a part of what's being taught and be able to ask the proper questions of their children. I know when I was a kid, I would do my homework before I got home. And my mother would say, no, I want you to come home and do it here so I can see you. And that needs to be really reinforced, that parents need to review it. And, you know, sometimes it's a learning experience for the parents as well. A lot has changed since some of us went to school. I have 6 nieces and nephews, and when I visit them, I'm amazed at some of the things that are going on now that I didn't have. So reinforcement to parents on how they should reinforce the teaching that the kids receive at school, not only in the evening, weekends too. And it doesn't have to be books. It can be museums. It could be life experience, parks, you know, ecology. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Mr. Deloach?
Yes, as a candidate for Ward 7 DC Council, I am committed to addressing the educational disparities in our ward. And to increase our literacy rates of our children, we have to invest in early childhood education programs. We also need to have more mentoring programs. I was a participant in the Fishing School. It's a Ward 7 early education, mentoring, and tutoring after school program that shaped my life. And it was a faith-based organization where we actually was picked up from school and they provided guidance for me to propel my career. But as long as that, we also have to reduce truancy, right? A lot of our children are not in school. We have to address that. As a former family support worker, I had the privilege to work with families to reduce creating family development plans to make sure their children stay on track. And we have to also make sure that we look at ways to increase funding for our schools. We have to pay our teachers more. They're our first line of defense when recognizing anything that's going on in the school. And we want to encourage them to retain and keep their jobs. So we want to make sure that they are fulfilled in their jobs, create professional development and training so they can be upskilled. So they're training our kids to the best of our ability. So we have to invest in early childhood education. We have to create mentorship programs. We have to make sure our schools are properly funded, and we cannot give up and make sure that our school children are attending school every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Mr. Fleming.
Well, I'm going to speak from the heart today. And a lot of the candidates said some great things, and I'll touch on that. But for me, how did I get from Minnesota Avenue to Harvard and back? First of all, was my mom really focused on education. She focused on literacy. That's what we have to focus on for our young people, literacy. My mom worked at the Lorton Prison. I went to school at Nanny Helen Burroughs School, but she made sure she got home from work around 7 p.m., but I was always under the care of an adult until she got home. So what do I plan to do? What have I already done? We need innovative programs. I brought Bard Early College High School to Southeast DC. That's our only selective application high school east of the river, where students in 4 years not only earn a only earn a high school degree, but they learn an associate's degree. They have 2 years of college completed. We need more of those programs together. But we also need something called universal after school. So my vision is that 100% of Ward 7's youth are connected to a before and after school opportunity of their choice. Right now, 20% of Ward 7's youth are participating in after school programs. Only 35% of our elementary and our middle school students are connected to those programs. So let's go from 35% to 100%. That's our goal. But I have twins. I know how expensive childcare is. I have 2. So we have to make sure that from birth, we are connecting our young people to affordable, quality childcare options. So that's a little bit about what I plan to do as it relates to education in this ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Now, we're going to have our lightning round. And what I'm going to do is basically several questions, and they're going to be yes or no questions. And for each question, in order to maintain consistency, I'm going to always start with Ms. Reed in terms of those questions, and they'll just circulate around. All right, the first lightning question is, Ms. Reed, yes or no? Do you support mayoral control of the schools?
No.
Mr. Deloach?
No.
Mr. Fleming?
I think the answer is complicated.
Mr. Johnson?
It's not a yes or no question.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reed, football stadium at RFK, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Deloach,
Yes, but it has to be prioritizing the resources for Ward 7.
Mr. Fleming,
Ward 7 needs first at the stadium.
Mr. Johnson,
Not on your dime.
Ms. Reed, streetcar extension to the Benning Road Metro Station, yes or no?
No.
Mr. Deloach,
If funding is available.
Mr. Fleming,
I'm following
Yes.
the rule.
Yes, yes.
yeah, I got you.
No to the streetcar.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reed, more deeply affordable housing, 80% of AMI in the ward, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Deloach?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Drug-free zones, Ms. Reed, yes or no?
Now I'm gonna break the rule. Yes, but they should not be announced.
Mr. Deloach?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
I forgot to mention that I'm a constitutional law professor, so if done constitutionally, yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, where necessary.
Okay. And Ms. Reed, halfway house on Minnesota Avenue, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Deloach?
No.
Mr. Fleming?
300 seats, over 300 beds, that's a no for me.
No.
Last one, and this is going to be interesting. Ms. Reed, if not you on the as the Ward 7 representative, then who? Give the name of the candidate.
I thought these were yes or no questions.
This is the only exception.
Pardon me?
The only exception.
No.
Mr. Deloach?
I won't announce my support for a candidate, but I will vote for someone else if I do not make it.
Mr. Fleming?
I think Vincent Gray would be a good council member to stay in there until we elect somebody that's good.
Mr. Johnson?
I haven't thought about losing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, all right. Excellent questions made up by Miss Tiffany Brown. Usually I go to the first one. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go to the third one, and I think you'll understand why when I do. And this is on public safety / youth. No, the lightning round's over. Okay. All right, yeah, we're back to, yeah, okay. Understanding that violence among youth often stems from various underlying factors, including socioeconomic disparities and family dynamics, how do you intend to address the root causes of violence in our community? Additionally, what measures will you implement to actively engage families and communities in fostering environments that promote positive youth development and reduce the prevalence of violence? Mr. Deloach, you can start on this.
All right. As a candidate for Ward 7 DC Council, I recognize the urgency for addressing our increased crime in Ward 7. Factors that have contributed to the increase of crime has been unemployment, food insecurity, and just social determinants. I have a campaign pledge to address the juvenile crime, focusing on preventative measures. No parent should receive a call that their children has been succumbed to gun violence injuries. I want to propose a Project Redemption program, which mandates community service for juvenile connected involved crimes, but also allow them to be rehabilitated and have possible expungement under certain circumstances. We have to improve our community policing. We have to have better coordination between the Metropolitan Police Department, the Office of Attorney General, and the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services. We also have to make sure that we are implementing policies that prevent crime in our community. Now is the time that we have to reduce all the systemic problems that we have been seeing. We have to engage our families. We have to make sure that the youth are empowered. We have to give them jobs. We got to get them into schools. We have to make sure they're on the right pathways. Men need to have mentorship programs. Women need to be also in mentorship programs. We have to continue to reduce the gun violence. We can't keep having the same situations year after year, and I promise to address this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Mr. Fleming?
As I stated, I was carjacked at gunpoint, so I had to deal with this issue face on. And I thought a lot about it. So we have to do several things. This is the short-term plan that gets long-term results. One, making the summer youth employment program year-round for thousands of DC's youth. We cannot continue to pay them sub-minimum wages and think that's going to help them get off the street. We have to change that as well. Secondly, this provision called Universal After School that we talked about earlier, 100% of Ward 7 youth in a high-quality opportunity. And then third, guaranteed subsidized jobs for disconnected youth under the age of 30. Those are the people that influence our youth the most. And more importantly, we need a specialized employment program specifically for youth that have been involved with the justice system. So we need to combine job readiness with workforce readiness, with trauma-informed therapy, and subsidized job opportunities. I also want to develop a network of mentoring, mental health care, and engagement and enrichment services in this ward. And they can be delivered in our libraries, our recreation centers, our churches, in the community rooms, in our apartment buildings, and in public housing. And this network needs to be publicly accessible so that you can navigate young people through the program and everyone can see where young people can get services in our community. It's going to take an all hands on deck comprehensive approach. I have more ideas on this. Please visit my website, www.natefordc, to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Moderator, can you restate the question, please?
Sure. Okay. Understanding that violence among youth often stems from various underlying factors, including socioeconomic disparities and family dynamics, how do you intend to address the root causes of violence in our community? Additionally, what measures will you implement to actively engage families and communities in fostering environments that promote positive youth development and reduce the prevalence of violence?
I'll work backwards. Youth development is centered on belonging. The problem with our young people is that they feel disconnected and they do not belong. And they are attracted to situations that create opportunities for them to make poor decisions, right? It's not that simple. What we need to do for our young people is instill a different set of values that we value them. We value life. They should value life. Because just because you're poor don't mean you're supposed to take a gun and rob you and take your car and hit you upside the head. That is not fair. My dad grew up poor. His brothers and sisters grew up poor in Arthur Capers, and none of them been to jail. Poverty may create a situation that may lead someone to do something that's illegal. But let's not say because you're poor, you automatically, as a young person, are going to rob somebody. Do we care about our young people? Yes or no? Yes, if we care about our young people, we love them. We mentor them. We guide them. What else do? We support the parents, the guardians, the grandparents, the older siblings that have the responsibility that is stressful, and raising them in a time such as now. We need to invest more money into opportunities to do more for the adults, to make the young people feel like they belong and valued.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Reed, do you need me to reread the question or are you fine?
It won't hurt.
Okay. Understanding that violence among youth often stems from various underlying factors, including socioeconomic disparities and family dynamics, how do you intend to address the root causes of violence in our community? Additionally, what measures will you implement to actively engage families and communities in fostering environments that promote positive youth development and reduce the prevalence of violence?
Thank you, Mr. Wright. I believe that our agencies work as islands. I don't think they work together enough. And One thing I found out from hosting the community resource days at CSOSA, when we would bring those agencies and partners together, that gave a lot of I don't want to say lower level staff, but they weren't decision makers, but they were the worker bees, and they formed relationships and they got together in order to work together. But that needs to be done formally throughout our agencies. For instance, MPD, the health department, behavioral health, and DCPS need to work closely together. Behavioral health, mental illness is a major problem in our community. Some kids are dealing with domestic violence in their homes, incarcerated parents. And these agencies, if they were formally brought together to work together for the good of the children and families, it would make for a much better community. Also, DCPS, their involvement is crucial because they need to reinforce it in the schools. I would propose, I'll tell you later.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Reed. We're still in the process of collecting cards in terms of questions, but I have a question. And basically, it's a short response, and it should be a short response. I'll start with Mr. Deloach. Let's say that you win the election and you visit Phil Mendelson's office. As you know, Phil Mendelson is the chair of the council. What committee assignments are you going to request and why? All right. I got you.
Well,
Good.
let's see. When I win the election, when meeting with Chairman Phil Mendelson, I would like to serve on the Committee of Business and Economic Development. It's one of the committees, again, I have experience as a small business owner, and I understand the needs of what these small businesses are facing right now. But at the same time, we need to have more economic development in Ward 7. And we have to champion policies that will make sure that we have a voice on the council. We have had lackluster policies and things that have got achieved in Ward 7. And now is the time to take advantage of this opportunity. We have some projects that are in the pipeline. I would like to serve on the business of economic and development.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Mr. Fleming.
This is a great question. So I worked at the council for 5 years. So those meetings where there's just the council member, the chairman, and one other staffer, I'm the person in that room. And I've negotiated with the chairman and delivered results for you. For example, in 2020, there were 21 schools east of the river that were underfunded in the budget. I led the fight to successfully fund those schools, but I figured out what the problem was. You get money for each student that's in a school, each student that is in a school that's considered at risk. But the schools over here had majority at-risk students. So we needed to give them more money to fill the gap. I wrote legislation to do just that, to permanently send millions of more dollars over to Ward 7. So to answer the question directly, the committees that I would like to serve on: education, labor and workforce, economic development, judiciary. And I also believe that we need to have someone that's strong working on our issues related to transportation and the environment. A first-term council member gets 5 committees, so we got to remember that. And we need to elect someone that knows how to get things done at the council. So in the first year, when you don't have a committee to chair, to get things done, you don't want to pass legislation that has to go through a hearing. You want to pass legislation through amendments and the emergency process. That's how you get things done, by understanding how to work the rules to get results from you. And that's the difference in this race. We can elect whoever's the most popular, whoever's the most pretty, but we need to elect the person that's going to get the most results for you. And that's me in this election, Nate Fleming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Mr. Johnson.
Actually, it's me.
I think I'm the most handsome too.
Government operations. The reason why government operations will be my priority focus, and he's right, we will get to be on 5. We will not have our 1 in the first period. We get it the second period. But government operations, because there are things that need to be worked out between agencies, interagency cooperation which is a lot of the problem. Everybody's answer so far has, let's make government bigger. Let's expand government programming. Let's do more, right? And I get it. I believe in doing more, but I believe in being effective and impactful. What no one has said up here, and maybe they didn't know, is that we're about to experience an $850 million budget shortfall. So what we all going to have to do is tighten up our belt. So when I get into the council, we have to be effective and efficient and streamlined by evaluating the programs and services that are working, that are impactful right now. We have made a mistake as a city because the government thought that the federal money was going to last, and we expanded our government and expanded programs, and those programs no longer have funding. So get ready for the cut. But understand that you have a council member here that understands how to do the best with the least. You know why? Because I've been doing it without a title before I became an ANC, before I became the president of the Hillcrest Civic Association. I understand what it takes to do more with less.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Reed?
Hi again. In 1993, I began my service to the District of Columbia with Chairman David A. Clark. Chairman Mendelson and I served on that staff together. We have a great relationship to this day. I served in that capacity with Chairman Kropp and Chairman Gray, and I was Chief of Staff for Ward 7 Council Member Kevin Chavis. I would want to be assigned to the three that first come to mind are health, housing, and education. And to tell you the truth, that's why I was able to begin a career with CSOSA, because they knew that I had a great relation with the council, with various government agencies. I believe I was with the council for 13 years in total. And so when I went there to CSOSA in 2007, I was fully prepared to assist returning citizens, to reach out to the council and various government agencies that could bring services to our returning citizens and resources. So again, healthcare, education, and housing would be my focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. We got a lot of questions from you all, and that's a good thing. I'd like to start out with this one for a minute and 30 seconds. WMATA is facing financial shortfalls. Can the city work with them to stop proposing eliminating critical bus routes in the city? And specifically in Ward 7, we could give increased funding if we sail the circulator, have Metro take the circulator routes and increase the frequency on those routes. This would mitigate traffic congestion and pollution. What are your thoughts on that, since we started with, I think I'll go, was it Mr. Fleming now? Mr. Fleming?
Is it me?
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
take
it's
it.
him. Yeah.
To me, when we talk about WMATA, when we talk about bus routes, to me, it reflects the need for community power in Ward 7. There's a lot of us here today, but we know we need more. And we need to make sure that we're building. We have a council member that understands the need to build the capacity of this ward, because when bus routes or when we're doing redistricting or zoning, sometimes Ward 7 gets the short end of the stick because we're not showing up to the table. And that's part of leadership. Leadership has to set the environment so everyone can take leadership in advancing our ward forward. And that's what I plan to do. As it relates to WMATA, they definitely need dedicated funding from not just us in DC, but Maryland and Virginia. This is a regional issue, and it takes a regional approach. We're also losing a lot of money on fare evasion. Anyone that takes the Metro knows about that. So one solution that I think is a promising solution is the plan to create a subsidized fare program for those that are low income. So when we have that subsidized fare program, I think we can crack down on fare evasion a little bit more, not just using police and arrests, because I don't think that's the way to do it, but using technology so that we can make sure that WMATA is not, you're losing millions of dollars of funds. But when it comes down to whether your neighborhood bus route is going to be lost or not, that's a matter of advocacy. That's a matter of community power. And here in Ward 7, we have far too many people that are on the sidelines. So the job of the next Ward 7 council member is to empower people like you to take others and bring them off of the sidelines. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
That's why you're electing us as a council member, because it's our job to get it done, not your job to do it, right? Listen, the problem with WMATA is a failure at the congressional level and a failure at the executive level. We are getting duped by Virginia and Maryland, who do not pay their fair share. The expansion of the railroads, the subway, we're getting stuck with all that cost, right? Fair evasion, okay, pennies on the dollar, right? But let's be honest, right? The region has to share the cost of expanding Metro, which is what's happening. How many of you all are taking Metro to Dulles? Right, exactly, right. Not enough, right? And that's not your mode of transportation to go to Dulles, right? So even if everybody paid to go to Dulles, it wouldn't do much. Virginia has to pay their fair share. Maryland has to pay their fair share. And we need executive leadership and congressional leadership to get it done. And as a Ward 7 council member, I press that issue with bolder, bigger, better leadership, right? That's how we get more. I guess I'm the only one up here that has actually fought to keep bus routes in Ward 7. We had a bus route that went to the 2900 block of Denver Street. We fought tooth and nail to keep that bus route there. We fought tooth and nail to keep the 30 buses up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. It requires a larger leadership effort from the Congress and the executive of the District of Columbia.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Reed.
I fought for the V5 to continue, and I testified at WMATA for that. Our families east of the river in Ward 7 rely heavily on all of the bus routes over here for work, for school, and the burden should not be on them. Nothing needs to be cut with regard to Ward 7. All the bus routes that take our families across the river are a necessity, and nothing should be cut. WMATA needs to actually do us more justice over here. When I was growing up, we didn't have a car. So I still drive the bus route because I know all the bus routes. And it's not even sufficient now. They need to increase service. No fare hikes should take place. And they need to give special attention to Ward 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Mr. Deloach.
Yes, WMATA has definitely had some significant setbacks, definitely since the COVID-19 pandemic. And their budget shortfall is now becoming a burden now on the District of Columbia taxpayers and definitely in Ward 7. And we have to make sure that we stand up and fight for our services. I don't support any bus fare increases, but also bus route elimination. I definitely think WMATA also needs to make sure that they are efficient and making sure that buses and trains are running smoothly, as well as making sure that their maintenance is up to code. Because a lot of times we're starting to see more and more WMATA trains having a lot of maintenance issues, which is impacting our residents. And I want to make sure that we also invest in the WMATA Metro Access Program so we can make sure that seniors still have the resources to get around, and making sure that they have some subsidized programs as well. So we do need to make sure that our residents have access to quality public transportation, efficient public transportation, and make sure our other jurisdictions, Maryland and Virginia, pay their fair share. It's because the federal government is an anchor in our community that they think that District of Columbia should be the highest paid jurisdiction to pick up the budget, and that should not be the case. The federal government hasn't been back to 5 days a week in over 2 years now, and that is a shortfall. So we have to take a collaborative approach when dealing with WMATA. We all have to play our role, but we got to make sure that WMATA stays focused on the priorities and making sure our residents of Ward 7 still have the services they deserve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deloach. We're getting more questions from the audience. I'm going to do a combo in terms of a topic. We'll talk about the environmental issues, Here's, I'm going to, in a minute and a half, try to answer these questions as best as you can. What do you see as the biggest environmental issue in Ward 7, and what would you like to do about it? What should be done about rats? And it's not just about your house not being unclean and all that kind of stuff. And basically sidewalks. Should the ward become more walkable? So we're talking about environmental issues, rats, and sidewalks, and what you would like to do about those. I'll start with Mr. Johnson.
Well, Godspeed with the rats. My father's first job with Pride was running through the alleys chasing rats with pointed sticks. And those who've been around long enough know that's a real thing, right? Rats have been with us. Unfortunately, they're going to be with us. But what we don't want is rats in our restaurants. We don't want rats in our storefronts. We don't want rats at the places that we go eat in Ward 7. So what we have to do is hold the restaurants more accountable and give them the resources so they can fight the rats, right? Second, sidewalks. We have to have a walkable community. We have that issue in Hillcrest. The neighborhood is divided on cutting sidewalks. Some people don't want their yards cut. But unfortunately, it's an ADA thing. The federal law requires that you should be able to get around. If you have a wheelchair, if you have a mobilized wheelchair, if you are impaired some kind of way walking, it should be the right of you to walk on a sidewalk and not in the middle of the street and get hit by a car. We have to make that a priority. I know I'm gonna get in trouble when I go back. That sidewalk debate in my neighborhood is a tough one. And the third one was sidewalks, rats, environment. That's a tough one. I'm out of time. All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Reed.
Please restate the question, sir.
Okay, basically, I'll summarize it. What are your views on rats, sidewalks, more sidewalks in Ward 7, and the environmental policy here in Ward 7?
Thank you. Our sidewalks, depending on where you go, I know particularly in Deanwood, there are some sidewalks that are not adequate. They're too narrow, or there's just dirt there. I know some residents have requested new sidewalks be put in their areas, so that needs to be addressed. Rats are a rampant problem. I've seen them all over the ward. I've heard people speak of the problems that they have. And I know that the Department of Health has a rodent control division. I'm not so sure if enough residents know that to report it. And so I would hope that they would be more informed, that our office could assist with that. And environment was your third?
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of litter, and I would hope that folks could take more pride in their surroundings. That would make a big difference. Perhaps that could be an incentive to students as part of their community service to not only clean up, but to assist some residents with the areas that need to be attended to. And so I would hope that we could come together and make that happen, to have a more beautiful Ward 7. Thank you.
Thank you. We're headed into the home stretch. Oh, you didn't? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
And Deloach, I'm sorry.
No
Go
problem.
ahead, Deloach.
Okay, I won't take too much longer, but my mom, I know she has a phobia of rats and mouses, so I understand this issue pretty well. We have to make sure that we keep clean streets and clean spaces, restaurants as well as homes. We should create maybe a program that will incentivize the Department of Health to make sure that residents have an opportunity to receive an annual cleaning of their home, or as well as making sure that their alleys are clean. I think my project, Redemption Project, that focuses on juvenile crime to mandate their community service to do alley cleaners, as well as making sure that DPW has the appropriate funding, not just do once a year alley cleaning. We should have it periodically. In regards to streets, I do believe that there should be more streeteries and safe streets to walk, but we can't populate or like the bike lanes right now. We can't make it so where residents can't have accessible ways to park, as well as making sure that they have a place to drive. So I want to make sure that we are advocating on environmental issues, but do it in a comprehensive way that can be beneficial both for residents and our environmental agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Mr. Fleming?
Yes, so let's start with the rats. I don't think it's a laughing matter. It's a serious problem for many Ward 7 residents, particularly those that live in apartments. 57% of Ward 7 residents are renters, and many of these landlords are pricing the fines and the abatements as a cost of doing business. So I've dealt with this problem as a legislative director. One of the solutions is a 3 strikes and you're out problem solution for the developers, where their fines escalate the more that they get them. As it relates to our environment, I think the biggest issues are litter. The fact that Ward 7 has more parkland than any other ward, and there's a lot of the parkland is not kept up. When I knock on doors, I hear people talking about, I say, what's your biggest issue? I think they're going to say balance. They say no one's cutting the grass across the street. Another big issue is the health of the Anacostia River. They're talking about letting people swim in it. I want to see some people swim in it first. But in terms of sidewalks and community engagement, I continue to talk about community power because that's important. Sometimes our voices are not heard. And that's how we get situations like the situation on Minnesota Avenue that turned into a 1-lane street where ambulances can't get through during rush hour. And that's not the community's, that's not what the community wants. And the community wasn't heard in that process. And that's what we need, a council member that understands this. But all of this is connected to jobs. In terms of our environment, remember I talked about the clean teams for the disconnected youth under the age of 30. That's the type of work that they can be doing in our communities to beautify them, help to make them more neighborhood friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. And we have to proceed. These are some excellent questions, but we do have to proceed. I encourage you all, if you have any questions, just to ask individually, ask the council member or council candidates individually in terms of your concerns. These were excellent questions. We're now going to go to our cross-examination round, and this is how this will work. I'll call out a candidate and ask that candidate, does that candidate have a question of another candidate? And that candidate will ask the question. The candidate who gets the question has a minute and 30 seconds to respond. And then there's a 30-second rebuttal. So just 1 minute. I've been corrected. It's 1 minute. Okay, we're going to start with Ms. Reed. Ms. Reed, is there a candidate on the platform you would like to ask a question of?
No.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deloach, is there a candidate on the platform you would like to ask a question of?
Yes, there is. This question is for Mr. Johnson. You talked about earlier that there will be budget cuts anticipated due to the fiscal responsibility of the federal government. My question is, what is your plan to address the budget shortfall? What would you do? Would you cut programs, or would you raise taxes on the residents?
I think the first thing is I did not say that. What I did say is that the District of Columbia government is experiencing an $850 million shortfall. Had you paid attention to the CFO's report, you would have known that. And secondly,
I did actually read it.
so you should know it wasn't the federal, but the DC government.
No, I was saying that
You
the
made a
federal,
mistake, so let me finish. Thank you. Right? You don't call me out. You don't. I'm bigger, better. I know, but I'm bigger, better. I understand. I'm not, but I am being professional. It's okay. Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Now, listen.
Please finish your statement, Mr. Johnson.
Listen, this is what has to happen on the DC City Council. This is what we go down there to do, to fight for you. So council members 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12 will be arguing and will be fighting with your council member to say that they're right when they're wrong. And I am standing up for you as a council member to make sure that they get the issues right on our behalf. What I will do is do what is necessary to protect.
Mr. Johnson, Mr.
My,
Johnson.
my clock ain't started.
No. She's the one.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Mr. Deloach, Mr. Deloach, do you have a 30-second rebuttal? 30 seconds.
30-second rebuttal, and I appreciate your response, Mr. Johnson, but you didn't answer the question in regards to would you raise taxes on our residents, or what programs specifically would you have to reduce to make sure that the budget of the DC Council is balanced?
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Mr. Fleming, do you have a question of a candidate?
No, I don't have a question of any other candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Mr. Johnson, do you have a question of a candidate?
I have a response to a candidate.
Well, you have to ask a question.
Okay. All right, Mr. Deloach, would you agree that my cut of the circulator and saving the Ward 7 residents $200 million is the right way to go in our budget season with a deficit of $850 million? And would you agree to me moving into HPAP or other programs that would directly benefit each one of you in this room? Or would you continue to fund the streetcar program?
Mr. Deloach, you have a 1-minute response.
Now, the response in regards to reducing or eliminating the DC Circulator program to fund housing initiatives, that is definitely something that I will definitely support. If residents are asking for not having that service, or making sure that that service area that is being cut is still going to have some priority to make sure residents can travel back and forth. Right now, the circulator is providing the service, and we have to make sure that when we cut programs, we're doing it, or the streetcar, we're doing it in a strategic manner. So I understand that we have a housing crisis, and that is a great way to address it. But we also got to make sure that we also provide funding for first-time home buyers. What exactly would this funding be going to, or what program specifically would this program that you're trying to refund go towards, and making sure that it's going to get to not just residents or people in the backlog? It's going to make sure that residents get those first-time home buyers or the HPAP program that you're discussing.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Mr. Johnson, you have a 30-second response.
I didn't understand what he was trying to say. What were you saying? I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
Well, that's your response. I already said it.
Okay.
You're not listening.
I think he wants me to say what I would do exactly with the money that I saved the District of Columbia residents, and what program would I actually put it in that would allow you to buy more housing. All right, let's talk about what I just did for Hillcrest. Let's talk about the fight that we just did at Skyland to release the $22 million to finish that project. Let's talk about the 75 houses of senior units that's going to Skyland. Let's talk about the 126 townhomes that's going to Skyland.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Okay, we're wrapping this up. We're going to have our 1.5-minute closing statements. And interesting, we're going to start with Mr. Deloach. Your closing statement.
All right. Residents, I want to thank you this morning for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I want to also thank Mr. Wright for moderating this strategic and privileged opportunity to be in front of Ward 7 Democrats. I am Dwight Sinclair Deloach Jr. And again, I am a Democrat candidate for DC Council member. I will be your advocate. I want you to understand that a lot of candidates here today talked about their issues and campaign pillars, but my campaign pillars of affordable and equitable housing will be addressed. My campaign pillar for food and quality access will be addressed. Public safety, making sure that our residents can finally be safe in their homes, and when they're walking down the street and when they're taking their kids to school. This is the time that we have to continue to invest in public safety. I'm asking you for your support. I'm asking for you to join this movement. Vote for me, elect me as your next DC Ward 7 council member. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Ward 7. In this race, we have to put our best foot forward. It's been 20 years since we've elected a new council member, since we had an open seat for council member. So to say that this is a generational decision is the least to say. And we have to put our best foot forward and elect someone that's going to get results for you. So this race is not about any of us sitting here. It's about you and who's going to deliver for you and who are going to deliver for those who aren't in this room. And we know that lives are on the line. So let me tell you my why. I grew up in the Greenway Apartments. I attended Nanny Helen Burroughs School. One day, I think it was 3rd grade or 4th grade. I was 8 or 9 years old. The Ward 7 council member, Kevin Chavis, came to speak to us. And I said, that might be a job I want to have one day. So I looked at his bio and I saw he went to Howard Law. I was already planning on law school. I said, okay, I think I can do this. I'm turning 40 now this year. And from then to now, I'm really proud of the work that I've done to prepare myself for this position. I worked for Eleanor Holmes Norton when I was 16 years old. At 19, I worked as a senior staffer on a presidential campaign. At 25, I was elected citywide to serve you as your shadow representative. And for 5 years, I worked as a legislative director at the council. So the work that I'll do for you when elected, it won't be new for me because I've already delivered. The Ward 7 Dream Grants program, the Ward 7 Restaurant Incentive Act that put funds to create 5 new sit-down restaurants in this ward, the Bard Early College High School, creating the new funding formula that brings more money to our schools. That's the work I've already done, but I can do more. I can build upon that as your next Ward 7 council member. So let's make our next choice our best choice. Vote for Nate Fleming. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ward 7.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Mr. Johnson.
All right, as we close out, what you heard, bigger, better, bolder. What you heard, more for Ward 7. What you know that I'm going to do is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. The best indicator of future performance is past performance, past success. What you know that I am capable of doing is understanding how to navigate government. I did that. 10 years as ANC commissioner as a chairperson. What you know I'm doing right now for this side of town, for this community, Hillcrest, we are pushing for the recreation center. We are pushing for the aquatics facility, $15 million secured. It is going to be built. We're pushing for Skyland. We are making sure that we are giving scholarships to our Ward 7 residents, not just the Hillcrest residents, but the Ward 7 residents. We gave out $15,000 last year, $50,000 since we started the program. We are making impact. Valario VJ Johnson is making impact, not just as a council candidate, but as a Ward 7 resident. Before I got my first title, I was making impact on the 2900 block of Nelson Place, making sure that our young people had activities. We opened the Therapeutic Recreation Center from 4 to 9 for young people. The advocacy on that has led to a $40 million new constructed facility that is for our seniors and those with special needs and disabilities. But that advocacy to get it done for young people is why we had that change today.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. As I told you earlier, I began my career with the district working for Chairman David Clark as his communications director in 1993. I was in that same capacity for Chairman Kropp and Chairman Gray, and I was chief of staff for Councilmember Kevin Chavis. I am uniquely qualified and prepared for this job. It's not a job of on-the-job training. And I think that I can deliver to my neighbors. I also worked for then CFO Anthony Williams, which is how I got to know many of you back then. I worked for the school board under Peggy Cooper Cafritz as the public information officer. And I was the public information officer for the DC Fire EMS department. My tenure with the district ended in 2007 when I went to CSOSA. They hired me because I had a long history with the district government and its agencies, and I was able to bring together many agencies and community partners to assist returning citizens through CSOSA. I am the national committee woman for the DC Democratic Party. So I am able to reach out across the district as well as the nation with regard to democratic affairs. I've done a lot. I didn't do it to.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Thank you.
Please give a hand to the candidates. And also, and let me just say this, I've moderated a lot of panels to the Ward 7 Democrats for a very organized operation. Please give the Ward 7 Democrats a hand. Thank you very much.
So that concludes our first panel. Our second panel will begin at 12 p.m. sharply. So thank you all so much. Please use the restrooms, but please come back and get settled no later than 11:45 p.m. a.m. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. This is y'all. This is excellent. Excellent. I'm gonna, Miss Morgan, I'm gonna ask that. I wanted to ask that, but we would. Everybody knows you. Everybody knows you. I'm gonna ask that. I'm gonna ask that next. Yeah. Well, now, of course, you can ask that individually, but I'm gonna make sure to ask that on the next one because, yeah. Well, it does. Well, you're right. You're right. I'll ask that, Miss Morgan. Yes, ma'am. We right. Well, I encourage you to, to talk to them. But I won't. I remember
But
that.
I had not heard anybody describe it the way you did. Did you take a video of it?
Thank you so much.
You didn't want to get that close.
Good, how you doing?
Thank you for coming.
Mine not working. Delia. It's working now? Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Right, you can say you guys will give us pads. We can use it to take notes. Yes, you did. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Can we have everyone come in and take their seats and settle themselves down? We are looking to start on time at 12. If you need to have a conversation, we ask that you take it outside of the building. Can we have everyone to take their seats? There are plenty of seats in here, and if not, we have a whole overflow room. Ask that that everyone silence their cell phone at this time before the announcement.
No cell phones or anything? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can keep it in, you just can't put it out. Just bring it out.
We can have everyone to take their seats. Almost there. Yeah. So since we are in a church, if there is an empty seat beside you, would you raise your hand? So there's some empty seats up here. There's some in the back, right there. So we would like to have everyone seated and not standing. We have a overflow room if you don't have a seat. There's a seat there. There's a hand up. There are 2 seats. Thank you. Oh, it's 1 seat here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We ask that everyone is having a side conversation, take it outside. Side conversations outside. We want to be very respectful of the candidates and everyone's time. I'm being asked to call somebody by name. I shall not. If you're not a Ward 7 Dems volunteer, we ask that you take a seat if you are standing. Otherwise, the standing room is outside. It's outside. Thank you. All right. You ready, ma'am? All righty. It is 11:59. I'm going to call up a young lady who is a youth leader in our city, Miss Sydney Roberts. Thank you. Give her a hand.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Ward 7 Candidates Forum. My name is Sydney Roberts. I am a junior at Washington Latin, and I am an at-large council member with the Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute. The Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute is a 4-level year leadership and development program for the youth in the District of Columbia between the ages 14 through 19. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Delia Houseel, the interim chief of Ward 7 Dems. to give opening remarks and the rules of the day. Before that, let me tell you a little something about her. Dr. Housel has been in Washington, D.C. for nearly 25 years and calls herself an honorary Washingtonian. In addition to serving in the Ward 7 Dems, she is an ANC commissioner representing ANC 7E06. Dr. Housel lives in Marshall Heights neighborhood with her husband and 3 children. I now present to you Dr. Housel.
Can we give this young lady another round of applause? Like, I am just amazed. This is what we're talking about when we talk about leadership. Thank you for your service. Thank you. All right, so good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Awesome, I love it. As mentioned, my name is Dr. Delia Housel, and I am the interim chair of the Ward 7 Dems. It is truly inspiring to see so many residents of Ward 7 gathered here this afternoon, demonstrating our strength and vibrancy of the community, demonstrating the strength and vibrancy of the community. Firstly, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our sponsors and partners whose generous support has made this event possible. Our sponsors are All City HVAC Services, J9 Sound, the DC Democratic Party, the DC Young Democratic Party, and our gracious host, Ryland Epworth United Methodist Church. Their commitment to fostering civic engagement within our community is both admirable and appreciated. I also want to give a super shout out to our planning committee and volunteers, because without them, this forum would not be possible. So if you are a volunteer or were on the planning committee, can you please just raise your hand for us? Everybody ready? Awesome. Let's give them a round of applause, guys. Other volunteers will have on a red name tag. So if you see one of those individuals and you have a question, we encourage you to tap them on their shoulder and they'll be sure to help you. Civic engagement is the cornerstone of a healthy democracy. It's what shapes our community, influences our daily lives, and secures a better future for us all. By being here today, you are playing a crucial role in that process. Your presence signifies a willingness to listen, learn, and make informed decisions about the next leader who will represent this great ward. This forum is more than just a gathering. It's a testament to the power of collective action and the shared belief in the importance of having a voice in the decisions that affect our community. I also want to express my sincerest gratitude to the candidates participating in today's straw poll. Let's give them a round of applause, guys. Awesome, I love it. Your dedication to serving Ward 7 and your eagerness to engage with its residents are commendable. This forum provides a unique opportunity for us all to hear directly from you about your visions and your plans and how you intend to address the issues that matter most to our community. It's a chance for open dialogue, for questions to be asked and answered. And I do want to give a caveat. We will not be able to answer all of community questions. I know we're going to get a lot. And it's also an opportunity to forge meaningful connections. So we encourage you, if you see someone that you don't know, get to know each other. Knowing your community and being able to talk and embrace them is very important to making sure that we have those social bonds within our community. And to the residents of Ward 7, today is about you all. It's about making your voices heard and taking an active role in shaping the future of our ward. As you listen to the candidates, I encourage you to think critically about the issues that are most important to you and your families. Consider, what will it take to address those issues, and who among the candidates do you believe is best equipped to lead us forward? So in closing, I want to thank you all. I thank everyone again for your commitment to the community and the democratic process. Let's make this forum a constructive and insightful experience for all involved. And in order to do that, we do have a few housekeeping items. First, I want to share that the forum is being live streamed to ensure that individuals who are not able to join us in person today are able to still participate. So it's critical to minimize all background noises, side conversations. And so I encourage everyone to please turn your phone off at this time and or put it on silence or mute. Also, if you have some burning things you want to share with the neighbor next to you, we encourage you to please quietly dismiss yourselves and have that conversation out in the hall. Also, let us keep in mind that each candidate on this panel took a leap of faith to run for office, which is really not an easy feat. So let us please remain respectful and poised throughout the duration of the forum. And I also know that you all did not come here to hear me talk, right? So without further ado, I am going to introduce our dynamic moderator for this afternoon, Mr. James Wright. And let's give it up for Mr. Wright, and I'll read his bio. So Mr. James Wright Jr. is a resident of Ward 1, and he is currently a journalist for the Washington Informer newspaper. And he also serves as an at-large member of the Seat Pleasant City Council. Mr. Wright is a staff writer for the Washington Informer newspaper, and he has worked with the Informer since December of 2018 and wrote freelance articles for the newspaper from October 2009 through August 2014. Mr. Wright has been a staff writer and city editor of the Washington Afro-American newspaper, covering Capitol Hill and the White House and sports from April 1993 through July 2000. He's worked at the Washington Post sports copy desk from July 2000 through August of 2005, and he returned to the Afro in August 2005 as a general assignment reporter until August 2009. Wright has traveled extensively to Africa, the United Kingdom, Rome, Libya, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Ghana, and now Ward 7 as a journalist, and he's interviewed notables such as the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, U.S. Associate Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Vice President Al Gore, and South African President Thabo Mbeki. Excuse me, that's my Southern accent coming out there. And many other African-American leaders, including members of the Congressional Black Caucus. He has received numerous awards as a result of his work and appeared on numerous radio and television shows. He is a member of the Society of Professional Journalists and the National Association of Black Journalists. Mr. Wright was selected by the Seat Pleasant City Council for the at-large position on October 10th, 2022, and was sworn in on October 24th, 2022. In Seat Pleasant, Wright serves as the vice chairman of the CPAC, a support for the city's police department. He has served as president of the Seat Pleasant Citizens Association and as a member of the Seat Pleasant University of Maryland Health Partnership. Mr. Wright was initiated into the Eta Gamma chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Inc. In spring of 1984. He serves presently as the associate editor to the Sphinx for the Omicron Lambda Alpha chapter and is the longest serving member of the executive board in the same position. Wright facilitated the OLA show, the only Divine Nine chapter that has its own television show. He has served as a delegate to the Baltimore and Indianapolis General Conventions and the 2021 Eastern Regional Convention. In June 2022, OLA chapter awarded him its highest honor, the Leon Gordon Order of the Sphinx Award, and renamed its President Award to the James Wright President's Award. So let's just give it up for having your own award. That's amazing. Speaks volumes. And I'm wrapping up. Additionally, Wright has worshiped at Asbury United Methodist Church since 1996 and presently serves as the church historian and sits on regional historical organizations for the Baltimore-Washington Conference. Mr. Wright is a native of Austin, Texas. He holds a bachelor's degree in business management from Prairie View A&M University. But his greatest inspiration is his 91-year-old mother, Mrs. Helen Porter Wright, who grew up in segregated Austin, Texas, to become financially secure in her own right. And so without further ado, let's give it up one more time for Mr. Wright. Thank you.
Well, we're here for round two. Thank you so much for that generous introduction. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to this outstanding forum. We got a packed house. And let me just say that it's interesting. I am here in this United Methodist Church. I am, as the doctor said, I am a member of Asbury United Methodist Church at 11th and K Streets here in the district. We call ourselves Asburyans. And so it is just good to be in a sister church of the United Methodist Church. I am here also representing the Washington Informer newspaper, whose leader is publisher Denise Rolark Barnes, who is a modern day version of Ida B. Wells. So we are ready to get started on this outstanding panel. Here are the ground rules. The forum rules have been shared with all of the candidates, but we'll hit a few highlights just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. The format will include an opening statement from each of the candidates for 1.5 minutes. Next, we will have 5 rounds of discussions about key issues facing the ward and a lightning round comprised of questions that will require a yes or no or one-word response. The first round is on economic mobility, then we'll have a lightning round. The second round is on education, and the third round is on public safety / youth development. Our fourth round will include pre-submitted questions from the audience, and our last round will allow candidates to cross-examine each other, meaning candidates will be given the opportunity to ask one question of another candidate with a 1-minute response time and a 30-second rebuttal by the questioning candidate. And I encourage the candidates, you don't need to be Johnny Cochran here. You just need to ask a question of your colleagues. Now, we'll wrap up with each candidate being provided 1.5 minutes to deliver closing statements. Candidates, do you have any questions about the format, the forum format?
No, sir.
Yeah, Ms. Rose Thompson.
Ms. Thompson,
Ms. Thompson.
is there a timekeeper we should be looking to? Who is that person and where are they? There's a clock in the,
Can you see it? It's on the wall.
okay, that's interesting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Hearing and seeing none, let's begin. We will have opening statements. The previous round I started over there, so I'm going to start over here. I'll start with Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, please proceed.
Is this thing on? All right. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the beautiful Ryland Epworth Church. Thank you so much to the Ward 7 Democratic Organization for putting on this event. I've been asked to stand up, and I will. Okay. Sorry about that. Hopefully my time stopped. My name is Kelvin Brown. I am a candidate for the Ward 7 council member seat. Welcome to the beautiful Hillcrest community. The reason I'm running for a Ward 7 council member is that our neighbors have shared with us their rationale and their sentiments about they want to see the communities improved. Every day that I meet residents at their doorsteps or at their kitchen tables, they share with me the same sentiments, that they're looking for leaders across our city that are going to provide viable solutions to improve our overall qualities of life. Right now, crime is devastating our communities. Education continues to receive lack of funding year after year. Our at-risk schools students are receiving less funding, and even some of our schools on the verge of being closed down. Housing continues to be unaffordable for many families across the district. And so now our neighbors are looking for us as city leaders to come with viable solutions that are going to improve their lives. And so I'm running for the Ward 7 council member seat because I know that I have the experience, the maturity, and the educational background to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe, affordable, and keeps people right where they are. So I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Felder.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendell Felder, and I'm running to be your next Ward 7 council member because, like many of you, I am deeply concerned with the state of our community and the future of our ward. As a fourth-generation Washingtonian, proud graduate of DC Public Schools, Bowie State, and Georgetown University with a master's degree in urban and regional planning, I bring a wealth of experience to the table. Over the last 10 years, I've had the pleasure of serving as a 4-term advisory neighborhood commissioner, the chair of the Ward 7 Democrats, and a number of roles within government all with one common goal: to improve the quality of life for everyday Ward 7 families. Currently, I work at Howard University as the Director of Regional Affairs, where I continue to champion the needs of our community. As your next Ward 7 council member, I'm committed to working with each of you to improve our communities by making sure our streets are safe, developing smart economic growth, providing high-quality neighborhood schools, ensuring that our seniors can comfortably age in place, and most importantly, making sure our government meets all the needs of our community. I look forward to listening to you all, answering your concerns, and delivering a shared vision that meets the needs of all Ward 7 families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid?
So good afternoon, Ward 7. Many of you know me. My name is Vita Rashid. I was raised here right in River Terrace. I was educated here. If you would have saw me before 2020, I never thought I would be running for an elected office. What happened was my kids were attending the KIPP right on Bennett Road, and it was a shooting there. And I'm the only parent on this panel right now with a school age, only mother with a school age child. And one of the things that I want to make sure is that my child is safe. So when that bullet went through that classroom on that KIPP on Bennett Road, I took to action. Because when I'm sending my child to school, I want to make sure that they're safe. And that's how I got involved. That's how my path started into doing this work. I traditionally did not think that I would ever be running for a political office. I went to law school because I wanted to make a way for my family. I wanted to create generational wealth. So from there, I started advocating for safe passage. Many of you I see in here, I did a peace rally. I was turned away. People told me, no, you can't do it. Don't do it. It wasn't going to work, but it did. And we had over 250 people come out. We started right at the KIPP on Bennett Road and we walked back. I've been committed to this community, whether it was serving as a mayoral appointee, whether it was serving as advisory neighborhood commissioner. I've always showed up for Ward 7. I went to law school and I said, you know what? I'm going to come back to my community to make sure that they can see someone just like them. And when I got my law degree, I did just that. And I have opened up a successful practice east of the river. So I'm looking forward to serving you on the council as your Ward 7 council member. And I look to engage each and every one of you. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Mr. Allen?
Good morning, Ward 7. Good morning, Ward 7. It is sunshine with all of you in this building. It's raining outside, but it's sunshine in here. I am Eben A. Allen. I want to give a shout out to my wife and my 3 handsome sons. Well, a little bit about me again. I'm Eben A. Allen. I'm born in Washington, D.C., Ward 7, second generation Ward 7 native. Some of the things I've already done and accomplished as an ANC commissioner is I brought Public Safety Day to the Bennett Park and Marshall Heights community, where we talk about solutions, where we talked about bringing communities and feuds and be able to come up with resolutions for our youth and for our young people. And also, I bought 15 new townhomes to Ward 7, where some people just said no one will be able to believe that someone can bring townhomes within their communities. And then awesomely, I bought the $11.2 million recreational center to Bennett Park, which we now call the Woody Ward Recreational Center. So when you're talking about youth advocacy and love for the youth, I also love our seniors and I also love those individuals who are aspiring to start their own business. That's very, very important. And then we have a serious issue with homelessness here in Washington, D.C., and we should not have that. We have a lot of things that we need to change. We have to impact. I'm Eben A. Allen. I want to be your next Ward 7 D.C. councilman. Make sure you follow me on eben47.com.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Ms. Payne?
Can everyone hear me? Hello, and thank you, Ward 7 Dems. My name is Ebony Payne. I'm a third-generation Washingtonian and the ANC Commissioner for Kingman Park, where I was raised. I'm a proud graduate of DC Public Schools, an English tutor to refugees, and I bring over a decade of experience in entrepreneurship and health and wellness. This is a very critical election that will determine who builds on the foundation laid by Councilman Gray. You can remember my name as Ebony with a Y and why I'm running for Ward 7 DC Council. Why? Because crime is out of control and we deserve to live in safe homes, safe streets, and safe communities. Why? Because I'm the only candidate who has a plan to solve our food desert with a network of local farmers who are excited to get to work. Why? Because we need a better vision for education and economic growth. Whether our kids are college bound or see themselves as wanting to learn a trade like I did, we should be preparing them not just to compete in the job market, but to become job creators themselves. Why? Because RFK. We are about to spend $500 million, and Ward 7 needs a strong leader to fight to ensure that every penny is invested back into our communities. I'm Ebony with Payne with a Y. Please vote for me today and in the June 4th primary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Thompson.
Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Rose Thompson. You were asked to consider people's experience and what equips them to be the next Ward 7 council member. I think it's important to share that with you and the lens I make decisions through. I am a 5th generation Washingtonian who is engaged to a no generation Washingtonian. It is important to me that if we will have a 6th generation Washingtonians, that we make the right policy decisions and investments for that to be possible. When I tell you about my experience, I can tell you that as the president of the State Board of Education, we have not only worked to expand safe passage, we have passed the first ever financial literacy standards in the district. That is historic. We have worked to address truancy. I can tell you that as a 3-term ANC commissioner, I helped modernize the rec center I went to as a kid. That was important to me. I can tell you as the chair of the Ward 7 Education Council, I have brought hundreds of millions of dollars to our schools, not only in pushing to make sure we have a at-risk fund, but going back year after year to get budget investments for our schools. I can tell you that I have helped modernize not 1, not 2, but 3 schools in this ward. I can tell you that during COVID, I worked with my community to deliver meals to seniors, and I look forward to telling you more about me. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start the questions. We're gonna go westward. So I'm gonna start with Mr. Felder and then Ms. Rashid, and it'll come back around to Mr. Brown. Commissioner Brown, Tiffany Brown, has these excellent questions, and I wish I could ask all of them. But I have to be different, so I'll be different this time from the last one. Okay. Economic mobility. DC is a growing and prosperous city. However, many people, particularly residents of Ward 7, do not always share in that prosperity. For example, according to the most recent census data, the median household income in Ward 7 is $62,243, which is about 3/5 the amount in the district, which is $101,722. If elected as the Ward 7 council member, what specific measures would you implement to reduce the income gap? Mr. Felder, you have 1.5 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. I think the reality is we cannot talk about economic mobility without creating pathways to economic prosperity. That's number one. As your next Ward 7 council member, it's a couple of things that I want to focus on. The first thing to do that is by addressing poverty. I want to work with the DC Poverty on Commission to pinpoint key neighborhoods across Ward 7 who are experiencing the highest levels of poverty. Additionally, I want to create more pathways to home ownership, build generational wealth. Most importantly, I want to establish an economic development task force comprised of stakeholders, local universities, workforce development trainers, bring everyone together and talk about how we can put families to work and establish a Ward 7 economy. One of the things that I talk about under the Ward 7 recovery plan is to establish an economy. Every other ward has an economy but us. I want to establish this economy that drives our small and local business owners. There's been conversations about RFK Stadium What I want to do is leverage the city's desire to build RFK Stadium and say, hey, you want to do business in Ward 7, we're going to kill two birds with one stone. Don't talk about RFK Stadium unless you're talking about creating a real downtown Ward 7. So what I want to do is coming into 295, I want to put 295 underground, reconnect the communities that were intentionally divided, build a hospital over there, create that whole area as the Ward 7 business district, and bring all of our small and local business owners who live in Ward 7 or inspiring business owners who live in Ward 7 and bring them to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid.
Well, thank you. First of all, when I think about talking about creating an economy, we have to invest in our young people, right? And we have to make sure that we have vocational training. That's a big thing that's missing. Everybody might not be on a pathway to college. And when we talk about vocational training, we only have one vocational training school here, and that's Phelps. So we need to make sure that we're creating those pathways. The other investment thing that I need to do, we need to have strong community development corporations in our ward. So anytime anything is going on in our ward, we have a strong person that can be at the table with us. We need to have individuals talking with us about strong community benefit agreements, because we can't have people that are non-lawyers at the table or don't have any experience trying to negotiate on behalf of the community. We talk about development. When I look in this ward from growing up here, it looks the same way it looked when I was growing up. I see the yellow house, I see the Denny's, I see all of these different things. It shouldn't be taking us 20 and 30 years for development to come here. And yes, while we keep talking about RFK Stadium, that is not the only economic development that will be coming towards 7. So we need to think about whole economic development. And you talk about pathways to housing, we can be creating generational wealth for people so that their families can stay here. Like I said, I have 13 siblings. First one to purchase a home here right in Ward 7. So we need to make sure that programs like HPAP are fully funded so that we are creating a pathway for the middle class to home ownership. And when we talk about economy, we need to talk about the community, right? So that's making sure that you have a voice in what goes in your community, right? Making sure, and I don't mean to keep saying, right, when I talk about Ward 7, I get very, very passionate, but.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Mr. Allen.
How do you eradicate poverty? You eradicate poverty through education. And so education is always not traditional. We have to find pathways, not just for our youth, but for our young adults. They need vocational career pathways, because my former alma mater, Morehouse College, costs $50,000 a year. Right now, that's going to be pretty much non-existent as far as our youth to be able to afford the traditional education. And so I'm thinking about bringing a STEAM middle school to Ward 7, which deals with science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics. Because for the arts, there's only one performing arts high school in Washington, D.C., and that's Duke Ellington. We need more resources here in Ward 7 for our youth. And that's very, very important. And also, when you're talking about internships, apprenticeships, we need to try to offer that to our middle school students so they can have hands-on training pathways to be able to have opportunities and resources. That's going to make the difference, is that we have to mold our young people and scholars right now, because that's when you talk about legacy building. And so education is very key, and it connects all the dots as far as what we're dealing with in regards to economic development, when you're talking about public safety, and definitely when you're talking about education. That's going to make a world of a difference. And so we got to be able to make sure that we stress education. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Payne.
Yes, the first thing I want to do is solve our food desert. I have already built a whole network. You want to talk about building a local economy? When I started networking with farmers, I make teas for a living. I was told that there are no farmers that grow herbs in this region. What I have found is that there is a network of Black farmers all across the Mid-Atlantic region who are ready to bring us fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and actually solve our problems here. We don't have basic restaurants, coffee shops, grocery stores. You want to start talking about building a hospital and building a school. You're not going to be able to do that if you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a new stadium, which is what the mayor would like to do, and what people up here who have all the experience would allow her to do. So I want you all to start thinking very critically about what is going to happen over the next 5 years, because we won't have the money in the budget to put into schools and to put into teachers to invest in the education that our kids need. I am ready to solve our food desert. That is no small thing. I've already built a whole network ready to go. They want to actually bring better ingredients into our grocery stores. You are supporting real families and a real local economy that your kids can participate in. Your kids can learn how to grow their own food, learn how to make their own healthy meals. That stops poverty.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Thompson?
One of the most honest things someone ever said to me is there's two ways to get rid of poor people. You can push them out, which we've seen our city do, or you can invest in people so they're not poor anymore. We have a lot of options to do that, and it's on our next council member to be intentional about those options. Whether it's thinking about education and training. My mother is Eastern class of 80. She's very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. What people don't know about my mother is that before she was a teacher, she was an electrician. Eastern prepared her to be on whatever path she needed to be on. Not that one as a vocational was less than a college going career. That's what our schools need to do. And we need to invest in our pathways for those children. Two, we need to think about how we balance housing and development, as the ward will change, and it will change really quickly. When we think about projects like Fletcher Johnson, when we think about projects like RFK, when we think about all the things in the pipeline, we need to make sure we are fully investing in HPAP, which has allowed my sister to buy a home. We need to make sure that we are having accessible housing for our seniors who want to stay. Like my grandmother has stayed all these years. We need to make sure that we are investing in our small businesses and giving them the opportunities to hold on, whether they're a brick and mortar or they're an entrepreneur. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Okay, we're gonna go to our lightning round. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. I do that occasionally, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry.
Absolutely, no problem, no problem. Well, first of all, we have to understand what the current environment we are in from an economic development standpoint in economics. Right now, well, just last week, the DC Council Chairman Phil Mendelssohn announced that there's going to be at least a $600 million to $1 billion revenue shortfall in the city. And so what that means is this: while we may come up with all of the best ideas and well-intentioned ideas, we have a budget shortfall. And so we're not going to be able to spend and live high on the hog anymore. We have to make prioritized decisions that are going to strengthen the fabric of our communities in a very sound and very reasonable way. Now, we can sit up here and promise you the world and not give you a dime. But I think as a candidate and as a Ward 7 council member, we need to be truthful and we need to be transparent to our citizens, right? We can't overpromise and underdeliver. But as an 11-year housing veteran, working for Fannie Mae, delivering housing to communities all across the country, the first thing that I would do on day one is to make sure that we take care of our most vulnerable citizens, which are our seniors. If you're 65 plus in the District of Columbia, there's no way you should be paying property taxes anymore. If you are a disabled veteran in the nation's capital, having served honorably, you should not be paying property taxes. And then from an education standpoint, as a former educator, we need to make sure we have pathways up and out of poverty for our students. I've created vocational education programs across the country, partnering and anchoring it on housing. Look up buildup.com. That is an idea we can use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Now we're going to do our lightning round, and this is how this will work. It will start with Ms. Rashid, and we're going to have several questions. Each time there's a new question, it will go, I will start with Ms. Rashid. So it's yes or no, and with the exception of the last one. So Ms. Rashid, do you support mayoral control of the schools? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Allen, do you support mayoral control of the schools?
No.
Ms. Payne, do you support mayoral control of the schools?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson, do you support mayoral control of the schools?
Not as it exists, no.
Mr. Brown, do you support mayoral control of the schools?
Very much so undecided.
Mr. Felder, do you support mayoral control of the schools?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rashid, football stadium at RFK, yes or no?
Yes.
Football stadium at RFK, Mr. Allen?
The people have said no. I agree.
Football stadium at RFK, Ms. Payne?
No.
Football stadium at RFK, Ms. Thompson?
No.
Football stadium at RFK, Mr. Brown?
Let the people decide.
Football stadium at RFK, Mr. Felder?
It's too early in the process.
Streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station, Ms. Rashid,
I have
yes or no?
Are we answering yes or no?
Yes. Yes or
Yeah,
no?
'cause that's what I was saying.
No, that's fair, Ms. Rashid. You have to let people have to say yes or no.
Yes, or just
I
say
was
yes or
asking
no.
the moderator.
No, I was saying that's fair. I'm backing you up.
Oh,
Yes or no? Mr. Allen,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Payne,
Yes, extended to Fletcher Johnson.
Ms. Thompson.
I thought we were still going over the question. My bad, man.
The Benning,
Can you
streetcar
answer,
extension
can you
to
answer
Benning
that
Road.
question again for me, please?
Sure. The
We
streetcar,
have some interruptions. Thank you.
streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station, yes or no?
If it's gonna cost 200 million, no.
Ms. Payne, streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station.
I said yes and extended to Fletcher Johnson.
Streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station, Ms. Thompson.
Since we're doing this, spend it on the WMATA cuts. Since we're not doing yes or no.
Streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station, Mr. Brown.
We have a budget deficit, no.
Streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Drug-free zones, Ms. Rashid, yes or no?
no.
Drug-free zones, Mr. Allen, yes or no?
No.
Drug-free zones, Ms. Payne, yes or no?
Yes.
Drug-free zones, Ms. Thompson, yes or no?
No, drugs are illegal already.
Drug-free zones, yes or no, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Drug-free zones, Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Halfway house on Minnesota Avenue, yes or no, Ms. Rashid?
I think that we have to make sure that we have places for our family members that are returning home. So that is not a yes or no question.
Okay. Halfway house on Minnesota Avenue,
And
yes
it's
or no,
coming
Mr.
anyway.
Allen?
Well, the community wasn't in full support of it, so I'm definitely undecided.
Halfway house on Minnesota Avenue, yes or no, Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Halfway house on Minnesota Avenue, yes or no, Ms. Thompson?
It's coming.
Halfway house on Minnesota Avenue, Mr. Brown?
Undecided, and it's federal land.
Halfway house on Minnesota Avenue, Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Okay, this is the last one of this round. Ms. Rashid, if you don't win the primary, which candidate will you support?
Well. I'm gonna have to think on that one.
Okay, thank
I
you.
know we have some great candidates here,
Okay.
so I would not say anything negative about these people on this
Okay.
panel. They all do great work, so
Okay.
I would support someone.
Okay. Mr. Allen, if not you, then who would you support?
I'm still undecided, still thinking about it. Excellent question, though.
Ms. Payne, if not you, then who would you support?
That's Gray for a third term.
Ms. Thompson, if not you, then who would you support?
So this is definitely not a yes or no. The Democratic nominee.
If not you, then who, Mr. Brown?
The Democratic nominee.
If not you, then who, Mr. Felder?
I echo my colleague's sentiments.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let me say that, like I said it before, and I'll say it again. Commissioner Brown has these, Tiffany Brown has these great questions, and I'll just have to, I'll pick this one specifically. According to some reports, upwards of 60% of Ward 7 students travel 30 to 60 minutes to attend schools outside the ward. If elected council member, what would you do to strengthen our schools and keep our students in the ward? We'll start with Mr. Allen.
It starts with programs, parent engagement, administrators, connecting with the community, having stronger PTA associations, bringing language immersion schools to Ward 7, a performing arts school, STEAM middle school. That's very, very important. Safer passages for our youth, for our elementary school students, for our middle school students, for our high school students, working with violence intervention, talking about mediation, peer mediation. I know at one time I was a Howard University Upward Bound Math and Science Program coordinator, bringing those programs to Ward 7. Morehouse Day, we talked to over 450 young men in Washington, D.C. Two of those schools are Ron Brown High School, and Kelly Miller Middle School, the same middle school that both of my parents attended. Programs, mentorships, pathways to success and safer pathways, and entrepreneurship classes and courses, cadet courses. Idea Public Charter Schools offer hospitality and tourism. We have to implement programs. I can't say that much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Payne?
Yes, I haven't talked to a single parent that's been happy with their child's educational experience in the district. One of the top complaints I receive is that there are not enough supports for students with disabilities and that we are spending the money allotted to them and just spending it on other needs. That is completely unacceptable. I talk to too many parents who are sending their kids out of DC just to get special care for their kids. So that makes no sense, and that would be the first thing I would fix. Everyone here is talking about vocational education, except I'm the only one who's actually gone through that path. And I completely rebuilt my life from the age of 15 to 17 after dealing with two very abusive relationships, and know what vocational education can do to actually spur economic mobility. We need to be bringing more schools like that into Ward 7 that are safely within walking distance of everyone's homes. We also need to create more continuity of programming. So you can start learning gardening education in middle school and go on to the Junior Master Gardener program in high school. H.D. Woodson would be a great candidate for that. That opens up opportunities for college and for jobs. And I also would like to see more walkability and a better transportation system. We currently have a lawsuit against Aussie because of failure to pick up our kids on time, our special needs kids. So we're failing our students, and we have been for a very long time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Payne. Ms. Thompson?
You asked us, mayoral control of schools, yes or no? I think it's really important to know what a council member can do about schools and what everybody else does, because there are 9 different entities that touch schools in our district currently. As a council member, we can fully fund our schools. As a council member, we can modernize our schools because we have our hands on the budget. As a council member, we can make sure that at-risk funds are going where they're supposed to go because we can do our oversight. As a council member, we can invest in initiatives like community schools, and those are things I would do. As a partner to the mayor, because we currently do not have control of schools as council member, I will make sure that we are planning for pathways that make sense for our kids. I will make sure that we are expanding things like safe passage. I will make sure that we're working on teacher retention, because unlike my mom who just retired, most of our teachers are coming and going for a lot of different reasons. But the first thing you do if you're going to fix our schools is know who actually runs our schools and what you actually can do about it.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Brown?
Great question. So as a former educator and haven't had the opportunity to really pour into the minds of young Black, brown kids and really see them matriculate, I think as a council member, what I would do on day one is implement the Supplement, Not Supplant Amendment Act of 2025. And so what that would do, it would make sure that it gives clarification around how general funds can be spent versus at-risk funds, the funds that are supposed to go to our most vulnerable students that have the most issues or concerns that they're dealing with at home. So that's what a council member can do, can legislate. Also, from a second thing is that we have to understand what the root cause is of why our kids are not going to school and why they're not learning and why they're falling behind. We must make sure that our schools are community oases that support not only the student, but also the whole family as well. If a parent is going to school already to engage with the school system, why not have supports there for the parent to make sure that they can find a job or have food? Or if they're housing secure, we have a case management that's able to triage their issues to make sure when a kid comes to school, the whole kid comes to school. They don't have to fight with 8 hours of being at home and not having food or a domestic situation at home. So that's number two. Number three is around safety. We must make sure that there are safety for the kids going to school, coming from school, but most importantly, actually in the school. Many have said defund the police, defund, take SROs out of our school. I want my family members to be safe in school and know that if something happens, there are professionals there to deal with the issue right there on spot.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Felder.
Thank you for that question. I'll say this. Speaking from the perspective of someone who's grown up in public housing and now being a parent of my own, I know firsthand the value of receiving a quality education. I thought the question was, what do we do to bring our students back here? I think this, even though it has to deal with education, this is more of a priorities issue. So as the next Ward 7 council member, once selected from day one, for all my at-large council members, Councilmember Anita Bonds, welcome. I urge you, if you're so committed to the cause and to empower Black and brown communities, do me this favor, get behind me, forfeit your budget priorities for the next 4 years to make sure that we close all of these educational gaps here in Ward 7. Now, in terms of what we'll do to make the environment better, the first thing I want to recommend is building a high quality, high performing application school here in Ward 7. That's number one. Number two, I want to also make sure that our environments are so safe, our community environments, our learning environments for our students. Additionally, I want to establish more before and after school programs here in Ward 7 so families and parents can feel safe about dropping their kids off as well as picking them up. And then last but not least, if you look at the educational disparities in Ward 7 compared to residents who live in different parts of the city, they're able to raise money through their PTE. I want to introduce legislation for an out-of-school time fund, let Ward 7 families invest, and then the city match those funds, and then they're equally divided across the Ward 7 schools.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid.
So as a parent, my child actually was educated here in Ward 7 at Ron Brown High School, and he's a proud product of that school, and I went there. And I have a child that's in high school now in DC Public High School. So one of the things that I think that we need to do is make sure that our teachers have what it is that they need to succeed. Oftentimes we're talking about these schools, but we need to make sure that we're investing in the community. When I grew up, we had community schools. And what I realized is serving as a paid parent where it's parents amplifying voices in education, I went out into the community and I advocated for some of these things, right? We just talked about when I had my experience at KIPP. Parents want to make sure that they're sending their kids to school when they're arriving there safely. You don't want to ever get that call and be on that other end of that phone. Your child has been shot or stabbed or something has happened to them. So we need to be investing in that. The other thing that we need to be investing in, we talk about these different programs. Eastern Senior High School, where I'm a proud product of, we have an EMT program there. We need to make sure that the resources are reaching the right people and the right families, right? I see our former chairman, Kwame Brown, he remodernized Phelps High School. We need to make sure that we have more of that going on in Ward 7 as well. But I think overall, we need to make sure that we're investing in our schools, investing in our teachers, making sure that our kids can get to and from school safely. And the other thing that I want to talk about is making sure that we're addressing whole families, because when we think about it, a lot of our young people are out not in school as they should be.
All right,
and that's
thank
the issue
you.
that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Next question, and this question will we will start with Ms. Payne. Looking ahead, what innovative approaches do you envision to ensure long-term safety and well-being for residents of Ward 7? How do you plan to collaborate with law enforcement community organizations, and other stakeholders to implement a proactive measures that address underlying causes of crime and promote a safer environment for all. Ms. Payne.
Yeah, so we have a historic amount of vacancies in our police department due to a number of retirements after the pandemic. So my focus would be on community-based hiring, fully funding our cadet program so that we can start, again, putting training into schools at an early age in high school and start hiring from people that look like us from our communities who really understand how to serve us and protect and serve us. I also am proud to regularly attend the Alliance for Concerned Men meetings. They happen every Wednesday evening at Moss Number 4, which is just across the street. So partnering with faith-based groups who are interested in violence interruption and safe passage, who usually serve just out of the kindness of their own hearts with very little money, if at all, being paid. So with a partnership between the community and the police and making sure that we are hiring quality candidates. I'd like to see more of an emphasis on Black women being police officers, but making sure that our police department reflects the vibrancy of our communities and that we're holding bad cops accountable for their actions. And I'll end it there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Thompson?
A couple things are important to me about public safety because I think it's not only important that people feel safe, but they actually are safe. Community policing is not something that is new to Ward 7. We don't see it in the same way. A lot of folks are not seeing the officers like they used to, right? They're seeing them in a car, they're seeing them, right? But I want to see them as part of our community. I want to know who my officers are. I think making sure we fully fund the cadet program, I have said over and over, is really important, and make sure we're facilitating those partnerships with our schools so they know that that's a pathway, but also so they know who those young people are. I think making sure we're actually addressing the uptick and who is having an uptick is really important. Right now, it's our young people. And it's for a lot of reasons. It's because we're not supporting them. It's because we don't see ourselves. It's because we have a design in the city that is really for adult people. When I was a kid, my mom was able to take me to Crystal Skate and I could be there, right? We had all age go-go's. We don't have stuff for them. And we need to work with our AG and we need to work with DYRS to talk about what are the appropriate interventions when we do have young people that are committing crimes. We need to stay committed to the safety social net we've put in place so that young people aren't in those situations, but we have to be honest about who is doing what and why, and really address the why and really be responsible when we talk about how we're holding people accountable, because it cannot be that you just lock people up and throw away the key.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Brown.
This is a very important topic on public safety. So right here in ANC 7B, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chairperson for ANC 7B. And one of the things that we've done as a commission is that we've engaged our community, asked the community how they can be a part of the actual problem solving and developing a solution. So maybe a couple of weeks ago, we held an engagement to bring the 6th District Commander, Commander Hickman, to Hillcrest to talk about not only the issues, but also solutions of how we move our community forward in a very safe manner. So first is community engagement, transparency, and communication. The next is making sure that we provide our families with the necessary resources to actually thrive and live in place, age in place, so they don't have to do like I did when I was a kid, pray for when I turned 16 that I get a job to help my mom keep the lights on and the gas flowing. The next is investing in a very robust candidate, MPD candidate program. And then the other thing is this: we know who is committing the crimes in our community. Many of our residents know who's committing the crimes in the community. So we have to be a part of the process, a part of the solution by working with not only MPD and not asking MPD to be everything and all things to all of our communities. MPD is here to serve a role, is to protect, to deter, and to solve crime. And so we can't ask them to be social workers. If we want social workers in our community, we have to pay for it and invest in it. And then the last thing I would say is that we have to hold elected officials accountable, the OAG, the U.S. Attorney, not just MPD.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Felder.
Yes, sir. I would say this: if families don't feel safe, they're gonna leave the city. If folks leave the city, that's going to impact our tax base. If it impacts our tax base, then all these social programs that exist, they'll be non-existent to really deal with the root causes of public safety. For me, there's a couple of things. As your next Ward 7 council member, I plan to work with each of you to, one, stabilize families, right? That's the key cause, stabilizing families. Additionally, I plan to professionalize our crisis interveners and violence interrupters, putting them in the mayor's office of community relations and services to really opening them up to the full array of government. You got to be able to go combat it and go straight at it with having the proper resources to really deal with some of these root cause issues. Also, I want to make a conversion of all these security officers who work in government buildings. 9 times out of 10, they from the community and understand the needs of the community. If you have 5 years of professional experience working in security and public safety, you should be able to grandfather in to be a police officer. Another thing, when we talk about the expansion of the cadet program, people use that because they don't know anything and it sounds good to say. When I expand the cadet program, what I'm talking about is bringing in other universities, bringing in Howard, American, GW, and say, hey, once we educate these cadets for free, they got to give us 5 years in the city to make sure our retention is where it needs to be. And I also want to add language within the application process that say, if you want to be a DC resident, while they're going through their cadet training, they're also going through the HPAP and first-time home buyers program at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid.
So as someone that has worked in the Attorney General's office, as someone who has sat every day in a courtroom in the criminal division for over 10 years, I've had a front row seat to our criminal justice system. But also as someone who had to tell their kids that their 15-year-old brother was gunned down over 25 times and was murdered and killed. But what we need to do is we need to invest in things that we know that work, right? And what we know that works is while we need more police, we need to also be making investments in other things, such as Cure the Streets. That is something that I strongly advocated for as an advisory neighborhood commissioner, and it's a data-driven program that is working. It is currently operating in many of our communities out of Ward 7. The other thing is we need to invest in parents, right? I'm a parent. I had a child at a young age, so I can personally speak upon having people in my community showing up for me. I went to college. I worked in Superior Court during the daytime. I went to college. I went to law school at night. And it was because of the people in my community that poured into me. It was because of the Boys and Girls Club. It was because of those out-of-town programs that we keep on talking about advocating for. That is how I was able to graduate from Catholic University Law School and come back to my community. The other thing that we need to invest in is our schools. We keep getting back to this, but education is the gateway to a successful future, no matter what you choose to do. And I'm a product of that. I can tell you that because I know it works. And just as a parent, we need to make sure that our kids are having programming when they're out of school. Out of school time is super important because we know if our kids are out here and they have idle time, then they might be doing things that they're not supposed to do. So we need to invest in programs like Evan was in College Bound, or with Kim Perry with DC Action, things that we know that work.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Mr. Allen.
A couple years back, there was a 1-year-old that was murdered in Washington, D.C. in Ward 7. His name was Carmelo Duncan. And so Carmelo Duncan, I'll never forgot that young baby took all of those bullets and lost his life. The car was shot up very bad. I have 3 Afro-Latino sons, 6, 4, and 2. And I think about them every single day. And I think about how can I protect my 3 sons? It's very, very important that we just don't talk about coming up with resolutions, but we're being very proactive about what's going on with public safety. There are seniors who feel like prisoners in their household. That's unacceptable. We have to hold these individuals accountable for the crimes that they're committing. Even if you're talking about holding parents accountable for their youth, that's very, very important because a lot of them have no guidance. As a city councilman, I will promote supporting grassroots organizations that need funding. We also need the violence intervention programs to partner with our middle schools and our high schools. And also we can educate and give workshops to our young people that they can learn how to have peer mediation. And also, our kids are doing what they're doing because they feel one way. They feel invisible. They feel invisible. And so we have to allow them to feel visible again, but we also have to hold them accountable again. All right. And that's very, very important. Thanks for that question, man.
Thank you. We are now at where we're having community questions, but I'm going to take a point of personal privilege, and I like to ask candidates this question. Let's say, and because of it, and we're doing really well on time, I'll give you a minute to answer it because it's coming from me. When you win the election, you're going to be meeting with Phil Mendelson in his office. And when you meet with Phil Mendelson, who is the chair of the council, what committees are you going to request him to put you on? Let's start this. Because this is a whole round, I'm going to start these public questions, as we call them, with Ms. Thompson. So she'll get all of them. Ms. Thompson, starting with you.
So this is easy because I already meet with Mendelson monthly. No, really, I already meet with Mendelson monthly, and I have set it up so that the SBOE now has a council breakfast with the council. The committees will change, but whatever committee Mendelson decides has economic development in it, I want to be on. Whatever, however, and wherever Mendelson puts things with youth, I want to be on, because he will reorganize these committees. I'm hoping he also establishes an education committee. I don't know what the timing is in the 1 minute, but
You're fine. Thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
For me, this is a very, very easy one. I've been working as a senior housing executive for Fannie Mae for going on 11 and a half years now. I've been able to deliver thousands of units of housing, both rental and home ownership opportunities across the country, even here in the District of Columbia in Ward 8, working with Children's National Hospital. And so the committee that I would be most interested in, if anybody can take a guess, Starbucks cards, housing.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Felder.
Thank you for that question. Having had the opportunity to work in the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development and seeing transformational projects here in Ward 7, one of those projects is Fletcher Johnson, where I've been able to manage that project. I know a couple weeks ago, the Mayor's Office mentioned that they're going to bring an urgent care. I'm happy about that. I'm sorry, an emergency room. I'm happy about that. I know some folks in the room advocated for that, and I'm glad to see all the work internally bear its fruit. So I'm excited about that. I say all that to say, knowing how we can address some of these deep-rooted issues really starts with an economy and making sure that we have the proper investment. And I know economic development, so I would say I will work on the Committee of Economic Development.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rashid.
So the committees that I would most want to be on is something dealing with economic development. And I say that because we want to make sure that tax is going to be a big issue coming up, and we want to make sure that we're having a seat at the table. We want to make sure that we know how money is being spent in our city, and we also want to be a part of that process. The other committee that I would love to serve on is the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, because as you know, in our DC Superior Court, our judges come through, their Article 2 judges, so they have to get confirmed through Congress. So that's why it's important for us to have DC statehood. Also, because public safety is the #1 issue that I'm hearing from people when I'm out knocking and talking on doors. And as a Black person that has sat in the courtroom every day, as a Black person that goes to Clay Terrace, Lincoln Heights, Mayfair, Paradise, all over, I want to make sure that our whole community is represented in those conversations when we're talking about public safety, because I know that it's important. So those are the two committees that I would love to serve on as your next council member.
Thank you very much. Mr. Allen.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to commend Phil Mendelson, Chairman Mendelson, for actually coming to Ward 7 and having his meet and greets to be able to have office hours to talk to the constituents of Ward 7. He's always seemed like he's pretty engaged with some of the topics and current issues that go on in Ward 7. And also, I know I talked to him a little bit about the Fletcher Johnson project. If you guys do not know, I'm the only alum on the Fletcher Johnson task force. And so I fought very hard for the Fletcher Johnson name to be preserved. That was very, very dear to me. And so it's been bittersweet of what's coming to Fletcher Johnson. However, with Phil Mendelson, Chairman Mendelson, I would try to work with the DEMPED, what you're talking about DPR. And I would definitely want to extend DPR hours through all recreational centers in Ward 7 to give our youth more programs and midnight basketball leagues to keep them off the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Payne.
Yes, I am tired of the lack of city services that are given to Ward 7 compared to the other wards in the city. So the number one committee I am interested in serving on is oversight, to make sure that our city agencies are responding on time and actually solving our problems. I am so tired of having to hear my constituents say that they call and no one picks up, no one answers their 311 requests. I have a woman who's on the verge of homelessness because the DC Housing Authority can't get, her unit inspected on time. We need our agencies to actually serve our communities. We waste so much money that could be going to our schools and our kids and our teachers, and we're just throwing it down the drain because we, quite frankly, have a lot of lazy people in government.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Okay, we're going to get to the public's questions, and because this is a whole round, I'm going to start again with Ms. Thompson because it's a whole round. Ms. Thompson. Ms. Thompson, WMATA is facing financial shortfalls. Can the city work with them to stop proposing eliminating critical bus routes in the city and specifically in Ward 7? We could give increased funding if we sell the circulator, have Metro take the circulator routes and increase the frequency on those routes. This would mitigate traffic congestion and pollution. What is your response to this? And this is, because this is from the public, it's a minute and a half.
Oh no, a few people said repeat the question for the community.
Okay.
It was long. Maybe summarize it. Yeah.
Basically, WMATA is facing financial shortfalls. And what can the city do to basically keep the service up in Ward 7? And one of the ideas is that to incorporate the circulator routes into WMATA routes. What are your thoughts about that? That's just one of the ideas. But basically, really how to increase WMATA service, particularly the bus here in Ward 7.
I'm not a council member yet, but as the state board president, I pushed for the board actually to chime in on the WMATA cuts. We actually sent a letter, not just to the council, but also to the mayor and the general manager addressing the WMATA budget cuts because they affect not just our students, but our families and all of us. I think it was the right thing for the council to do, to pay more than its fair share. And when I looked at the proposal WMATA put on the table, it was going to hit us especially hard, especially routes that are close to here, like Fairfax Village would have been completely cut off. I think as a council member, the thing we need to do is to stay very vigilant about WMATA proposals and how the buses run, when they run, and what the investments look like. I know WMATA actually have released the equity plan. And that was supposed to increase bus service. And many of those things were not funded through the council because they started talking about free Metro for all. And they really needed to be talking about better service for us. And that is the thing we need to be vigilant of. The circulator is tricky because the circulator is not currently part of WMATA. It is privately owned. And I think sometimes we get distracted not knowing who serves us and how it's served. I don't know, and I'm honest about what I don't know. I don't know what it looks like to sell the circulator. I don't know what that looks like. I do know what it looks like to fully fund WMATA and hold people accountable so we get good service.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Brown.
For me, it's a question of equity. It's a question of accountability and transparency. In no way, shape, form, or fashion should DC be paying more than Maryland or Virginia. Each jurisdiction should ante up and step up to the plate and pay its fair share as well. DC should not be paying more than what it's paying right now because, as I mentioned in the earlier part of my conversation, DC is experiencing a revenue shortfall, and we have to make serious decision about the priorities around housing, around public safety, around education. And I understand we have to make sure that our students, our families have adequate, safe transportation as well, but in no way should DC be paying more than its fair share. Let's hold the other jurisdictions accountable to coming to the plate as well. They use the services. And here's another thing. Residents from Maryland and from Virginia come into DC every day and use all of our services, speed through our traffic lights, run our red stop signs, and they are not held accountable, not one iota. But DC residents, if I speed down Branch Avenue, guess what? I'm held accountable. I have to pay my ticket, right? So we need to stop getting the short end of the stick and capitulating to the surrounding jurisdictions, period.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Felder.
I will have to agree with some of my colleagues' sentiments already. This is more of a conversation about priorities, equity, and then marketability. I got this idea just now saying my guy in the back, Dirk Ford, I know he oversees the Economic Development Partnership, and working with him in the past, one of the things that I participated on is a tour across Ward 7, looked at the different communities when we're trying to bait in economic development. I think we should replicate that, but more so on the transportation side. Oftentimes, folks who don't live in Ward 7, don't come over here to Ward 7, really don't know the beautiful communities that exist within our community. So as the next Ward 7 council member, what I plan to do is meeting monthly with the general manager of WMATA, driving through Ward 7, looking at our major thoroughfares, looking at our different communities, and figuring out how can we make Ward 7 a priority. I know that WMATA recently issued a report that talked about different metro stations that they plan to redevelop. Danewood is within that conversation. And when I talk about the stadium, I want to put another metro stop at Stadium Armory near Oklahoma Avenue, so the residents who live in Kingman Park won't be, or the surrounding communities will be inconvenienced, whatever happens at the stadium. I say all that to say, just driving around the different neighborhoods of Ward 7, showing the beautiful communities and building that relationship with Ramada. That's what I'll do as the next councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid.
Yes. So what I would say is that we do have a person in our community that has been championing WMATA, Commissioner Travis Swanson. At every meeting that I always go to, he always talks about ridership. He always talks about the circulator, metro buses, and fares. But I will have to circle back to Ms. Paul, who's our DDOT person, because she always talks about we need to think about transportation as a comprehensive. So when we're talking about these things, we're talking about them as one-offs, right? But we need to be talking about a whole comprehensive plan of transportation in Ward 7. So talking about our buses, talking about our livability, our walkability on our streets, making sure people can go to and from, because I don't think we're having too many discussions about that. And I do believe that everyone should be paying their fair share when it comes to ridership. One of the things, when I was a DC government employee, we had subsidies. So the district curtailed some of your expenses. When I was a federal government employee, the district curtailed some of your expenses. But I think that when we're talking about WMATA, when we're talking about the circulator, when we're talking about the streetcar, we need to be talking about transportation as a whole. Because what we're seeing now is that plans are being made. Our fire, emergency, and medical services cannot get to people in time because our streets are blocked off. Recently, we just had a fire on Minnesota Avenue. None of the buses could get down the street. It was gridlocked. People were leaving their cars in the middle of the street and walking. So that is why it's important for us to have a comprehensive transportation plan for Ward 7.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Mr. Allen.
Yes, again, it's all about equity. It's all about how we serving the constituents and residents of Ward 7. And so we shouldn't really be focused on the streetcar. We should focus on the things at hand that really, really matter most. And that's with WMATA and also with Metro. If Washington, D.C. and City Council don't approve this Metro budget, it's probably going to happen that 9 Metro stations might close. And so you got to really pay attention to what's going on when you're talking about the city's budget. And so that's very, very important that these metro stations, please, we cannot close. And when you're talking about Deanwood Metro Station is one of the most dangerous stations in Washington, D.C. So let's talk about safe passages. Let's talk about working with MPD. Let's talk about working with Metro Transit so individuals can feel safe when they go to every metro station. And also, let's talk about the Benco Shopping Center that has been looking the same for decades. And so we need amenities. We need vibrant communities east of Ward 7. That's very, very important. And so when you're getting off at Benner Road Station and when you're coming out of the driver of motor vehicles, no one has nowhere to go. And so that also deals with transportation. You're giving people driver's license, but then they have nowhere to go when you're talking about Benco, when you're talking about walking to Benner Road Metro Station. So let's focus priorities on Ramada and priorities on this metro budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Payne.
Yes, because we live in a jurisdiction where we've got multiple states that come and have their drivers, we really need to be fully funding WMATA so that we get as many people out of their cars and off of our streets and making sure that we're holding the aggressive drivers accountable. I don't understand why DC residents have to pay their tickets, but aggressive drivers from Maryland and Virginia and all these fake tags don't have to pay their fair share, and we're bearing the cost of them screwing up our roads. You know, we need to be working with Virginia and Maryland quarterly, regularly, meeting with the leaders to make sure that we are tackling our transportation issues, not just comprehensively, but as a whole tri-state area. We are also not serving seniors' transportation needs at all. Currently, the Department of Aging handles senior transportation. That makes absolutely no sense. It needs to be put under the Department of Transportation so that when DDOT plans their bike lanes and puts up their bollards, that they keep seniors and disabled people and people who have mobility issues in mind.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Okay, we have a question. I have a question here from a very influential long-term Ward 7 resident. And if I do not read this question, I may not make it out of this room. So, Ms. Thompson, how would you reconstruct Minnesota Avenue?
Well, if this forum was on Minnesota Avenue now, most of us wouldn't make it out of here. Minnesota Avenue is a mess. It not just like drives up my blood pressure when I try to go down Minnesota Avenue. Sometimes it breaks my heart because it is currently one lane in each direction with protected bike lanes. Now, I am not personally against bikes, but I'm very much against the fact that emergency vehicles cannot pass by. And as someone who has had to follow an ambulance when my grandmother had a stroke, that is absolutely unconscionable. It is absolutely unconscionable, and we made that worse. And so I think working with DDOT to make sure as they redesign Pennsylvania and Minnesota, because they have money in the budget for that now, and it actually follows the the small area plan is really important. I think making sure when we're doing these, and I've been on them, the safety walks with ANCs and residents, that we're not just thinking about bikes, but we're thinking about cars. We're thinking about people who walk. We're thinking about our seniors. That should be taken into place when we think about planning, right? Like, because I cannot think about what happens to someone else's family because I know the things that have happened to my own. And so we absolutely have to get these things right in Ward 7 because they matter for our livelihood.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Brown.
So this question, as the chairperson for ANC 7B, the commission has met with DDOT and met with the community a number of times to engage them about thoughtful design and implementation of our transportation apparatus and infrastructure across the commission area. And DDOT always shows up with their grand designs, and they are open to feedback in the meetings. But what happens outside of the meeting is a thing that is really of concern to, I think, all of the commissioners, including myself, is that DDOT goes into their dark rooms and they come back with these designs that do not take into consideration none of the thoughts or perspectives that we addressed in the meetings. So the problem that I have is that if you're going to engage us and ask us what our thoughts and opinions are about the quality of life and our transportation in our community, make sure you implement that in the actual design. And that's what happened on Minnesota Avenue Southeast, is that DDOT went into their box and they came back with their own ideas, agnostic to what the community said. And so we have to hold these agencies responsible and accountable to the community, because at the end of the day, guess what? We as taxpayers pay their salaries, and they should listen directly to us as direct constituents. End of story.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Felder.
Thank you for that question. I'm against the current construction of Minnesota Avenue. I think that it is insane to have one lane back and forth on a major thoroughfare. As the next Ward 7 council member, I plan to introduce emergency legislation that will force DDOT to redesign that community from Minnesota Avenue to Randall's Highland, redo the work that they've done. So once again, they wasted taxpayers' dollars. That's why you need a council member who understands the budget, who's not just going to tell you what you want to hear, and I'm that guy. Additionally, I want to establish a task force, a Minnesota Avenue task force comprised of ANC 7F and ANC 7D as the chair of ANC 7D. And I see my fellow colleague, Mr. Tyrell Holcomb. I appreciate you, brother, for coming out. I know we've been working together on a number of issues, but establish a task force that is comprised of commissioners, the business owners who who do business along Minnesota Avenue, constituents, stakeholders, and get their perspective. And then we're going to meet monthly with the deputy mayor for infrastructure to make sure, like, hey, you guys, once again, go back to priority. This is a priorities thing. Anything with education, transportation, economic development, it goes back to priorities. So making sure that we're priority, that's the energy that I'm bringing. That's my passion. Every time I answer the question, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid.
So when we're talking about infrastructure and we're talking about Minnesota Avenue, once DDOT expends federal funds, it is very hard for you to get those things re-picked up and redone. But this goes back to representation, and this is why voting in elections matters, because our ANCs have passed resolutions that were in support of, and if we go look at the legislative record, were in support of the bike lanes that were put on Minnesota Avenue. And that is why it is there. And those individuals were speaking for the whole community. So that's why it's important for you to show up at your advisory neighborhood commissioners. That is why it is important for you to have those conversations. As far as Minnesota Avenue, that is now we're trying to develop that as a downtown Benning, right? We want to make that an area where people can go to, where it can thrive. But in order for that to happen, we all need to be a part of this conversation. I was the ANC commissioner at 7E01 along with Commissioner Allen. And one of the things that we were trying to do was get speed bumps on Southern Avenue, but we could not get them because it was a federal evacuation route. And I say that because I was very shocked that they were able to do that on Minnesota Avenue, because it also is a federal evacuation route. So if something terrible was to happen in the city, how will we get out? And we've seen that we're not going to be able to do that just based on the fire that just happened at Kimball just a couple of weeks ago. So I'll tell you these two things. Talk to your advisory neighborhood commissioners. Make sure you're showing up for those elections.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Mr. Allen.
I agree with Commissioner Rashid. Meetings for ANC commissioners, your civic associations, and all these other organizations, you need to be at the table. You have to speak up. You have to have your voices heard. DDOT is not always transparent. I remember a time when they came to Southern Avenue and Fifth Street, and they asked me to put up a bike trail. I'm sorry, not a bike trail, but a bike rack. And I said at Bennett Park right now, there is no lighting on football field, on the baseball field. So let's talk about safety. That's very, very important. You have to hold DDOT accountable. Minnesota Avenue, also we consider as downtown, Ward 7. You have Department of Employment Services headquarters. You also have DGS headquarters. You have the Dorothy Height Library right there, Dean Wood. We're not even sure about what's going to happen with the Safeway, but I hope the lease is up. And so that's very, very important that we make sure that traffic coming over the Willie Hardy Bridge, that we have safe pathways. That's very, very important. Thank you very much. Ask the question.
Thank you. Ms. Payne.
How many of you all actually attended a community meeting about Minnesota Avenue? And did they tell you that they wanted to have a bike lane on there? Right, exactly. That's exactly why I want to be on the oversight committee. DDOT did the exact same thing in my community in front of a school called Friendship Low Pierce. They put a protected bike lane in front of the school's entrance, cutting off access to the disabled kids who had wheelchairs. The school was in the midst of constructing an elevator. I'm not playing games with DDOT. There's already a lawsuit against them for their lack of ADA compliancy with these bike lanes. We can just do that again with Minnesota Avenue and force them to change it.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. We are headed down the stretch. What we'll do is we'll have the cross exam, and then we'll have closing statements. Many of you all submitted questions, and they were excellent questions. However, because of time, we couldn't get to them, but I encourage you to engage the candidates on your questions individually. We will start with Mr. Brown on this. Here's how this will work. The candidate will ask another candidate a question. The candidate who is being asked the question has a minute to respond. And then the questioner will have 30-second rebuttal. So let's start with Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, do you have a question for one of your colleagues?
Well, I absolutely do not have a question for one of my colleagues because my interest here is actually selling myself and my experience and my background to the community, and then the community to decide who they deem fit to serve as the next Ward 7 council member.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Felder.
Yes, I do. I have a question to Ebony Payne. Commissioner Payne, you have, within your financial reports, you have not listed in none of those 5 mailers you sent out, those 10 text messages, you door hanger, right? And none of that's listed. And you had a commercial on CNN, I believe. I'm trying to understand, where's this money coming from and why are your expenses not being reported?
Ms. Payne.
I'd be happy to answer that. I think you're just upset that I'm running a better campaign than you. You will get to see all of my finances on the next report, and that's correct. We do have a TV commercial going on right now. We've sent out, I don't understand why I've been owning the mailboxes. I sent my education piece quicker than yours, Ms. Thompson. And I've knocked on thousands of doors at the same time. Talked to thousands of voters.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Felder, your 30-second response.
Let me be unequivocally clear. I don't need to hide behind my literature because I'm socially awkward. I have the relationships and the work in the community. We knock on doors every day, unlike other people. In terms of a better campaign, I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid, do you have a question for one of your candidates? Colleagues, I should say.
The audience is saying, say no.
Okay. Thank you, Ms.
But
Rashid.
I do have a friendly question. And my question, it is for Ms. Payne. It is just I was knocking on doors, and one of the neighbors had told me that you have something, and you said that if people take dogs, they're going away for a long time. And I know that you're saying that public safety is your top priority, and I just want to know, how do you plan on addressing public safety?
1 minute, Ms. Payne.
Yes, so the commercial you're referencing is our dog ad. So there are 15 states that treat dog theft and dog napping as a felony. Now, whether we want to classify it as a felony, but right now DC is currently counting dog nappings as property crime. So it's a very lenient sentencing, and we're not sending a message that it won't be tolerated. And we have, just like we had a spike in carjackings, we have a spike in dog nappings. Okay, well, it's dangerous. Not just there are people who walk dogs. Okay, it's dangerous for the owners. It's traumatizing to everyone involved.
All right, thank you very
So-
much. Do you have a 30-second response?
Yeah, so I
Ms.
do have a
Rashid?
30-second response. As someone that's worked on the Commission on Human Rights and working on banning box legislation and making sure that people can get their records sealed and expunged, I don't think that we should be sending people to 10 years for taking a dog, especially when we have people out here getting killed on the streets. So I think when we're talking about public safety, that we just need to be taking a holistic approach, a preventative and a rehabilitative approach to that. And if you are elected as our council member, I hope that you would, take that under consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Mr. Allen, do you have a question for one of your colleagues?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Payne, do you have a question for one of your colleagues?
Yes, I have a question for Ebony Rose Thompson. I asked you to show up for my students in my single member district 3 times last year, and you never came. That was a big miscalculation. And I'd like to know why I should believe that if you're city councilwoman and why any of that would change.
Ms. Thompson, your response.
So let me stand up when I say this. Not only do people need to know how many schools I represent, but people need to know that I'm honest. And so I'm happy to drop the correspondence with you about your school when you never actually set up a time. Or
you can do that too,
Ms. Thompson's time.
Or-
Ms. Thompson. Go ahead, Ms. Thompson.
No, because I was speaking. So since Shirley dropped last night, reclaiming our time and all the things because we think about our elders. Now, I am happy to drop that correspondence, but we're not going to be dishonest up here. Okay? You never set up a time. We also had a date where we were supposed to meet, and we corresponded about you not showing up and why that no longer works for you.
No, that was you.
I am aware that the
no.
rules,
Go
I
ahead.
am aware that the rules are you will get a 30-second rebuttal. But
Okay.
I'm also very honest about when and how I show up. I've been to 5 schools this week.
Okay.
That is my truth as a current elected official
Okay.
who represents
Okay.
all of Ward
Thank you,
7.
Ms. Thompson. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Your 30-second rebuttal, Ms. Payne.
Because I'm running the best campaign. In fact, I will just rebut with my endorsements. I have got 15 congressional endorsements, including Congressman Cardenas, Congressman Cuellar, Congressman Castro, Congressman Gallego, Congressman Ruiz. You would like me to keep going? I don't make excuses. And when I say something, I'm going to do something, I do it. I don't ever make an excuse.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Thompson, do you have a question for one of your colleagues?
I sure don't.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to closing statements. Mr. Felder, it will start. Closing statements.
Thank you. I would just say this. Look at my community track record. I've been in Ward 7 over the last decade on the front line, going door to door before I even ran for an office. I didn't just come out of nowhere. I didn't just have all this money funded. Don't even understand the historic contents, the cultural contents, the passion and the heart of our community. I'm not trying to sneak an election in because I'm under the impression by way of the redistricting process, it's 13 candidates over here and 1 candidate on the other side, and think they could just send these mailers out and oh my gosh, I get so passionate and dishonestly trick voters. Couldn't tell you Benning Road, Minnesota Avenue, Lincoln Heights, none of that. I strongly encourage voters who tune in there and in the audience, pay attention. It's not what they just coming out now. They didn't even live in the city for more than 10 years out of the city. Look at their voting history. Everything that glitters is not gold. I don't just talk about the problems with no solution. They keep saying the same thing. You need a council member who has passion, understanding of government, community ties, and most importantly, who knows how to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. Ms. Rashid.
So thank you, Ward 7 Democrats, for having me here tonight. And I want to say that I'm committed to Ward 7. I've been here since day one. whether it's serving as your advisory neighborhood commissioner, whether it's been as serving as a mayoral appointee, whether it's been serving on the Commission on Human Rights, whatever it is, I've been in this community. I'm committed to this community. I'm raising my family here. And although while Ward 7 is a great place to live, we can make Ward 7 a better place to live. One of the things that I'm very strongly about doing is making sure that we have representation. So when I'm on the council, I'm going to represent you. I'm going to make sure the things that you want are getting done. I will address constituent services when I get there. That's a number one priority for me. We have over 27 communities in Ward 7. All of them need representation. Public safety is important to me. I'm going to be making sure that we're taking a preventative, a holistic, comprehensive approach to making sure that we're getting those things done. And economic development, we're talking a lot about RFK Stadium. That's not the only piece of development that we have in Ward 7. So we need to make sure that we're growing a strong economy here. And we also need to make sure that we're creating pathways for housing here for the residents. And the people that have been here are able to stay here. So I will humbly ask you for your support and your vote on June the 4th. And please keep up with me. My website is voteforvita.com. And I'm on most platforms. It's Vote for Vita. And thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Rashid. Mr. Allen.
Good evening again, Ward 7. It's been a pleasure being here with all of you, all your constituents. Your vote matters. On February 14th, 2024, there was a standoff on Hannah Place Southeast. That was actually the home that I grew up in. And so my mom actually owned that home. And so we've seen a lot of different issues that took place on that day. 3 cops were shot. They could have lost their lives. Also, there were 33 dogs in that one house. That's a house that my grandmother and my grandparents raised 10 kids in that house. So I believe the power of prayer was able to let that young man come out of there alive, right? But what we're dealing with is in Ward 7 is that you need strong leadership. You don't need someone that's going to bring gentrification to Ward 7 because we're trying to preserve Ward 7. We want to include Ward 7. We want to make sure that our legacies are built in Ward 7. It's not about the past, whether we want to preserve the past, but it's about our future. No one talked about River Terrace and Hill East, but we also have to make sure they're included here in Ward 7. And we also have to understand there's a Latino population coming to Ward 7. Ward 7 is forever transforming. So we better wake up and we better come to these meetings. But I'm telling you, when I get in office, I'm not going to compromise. I'm going to make sure I stand 10 toes down for Ward 7 because Ward 7 is first. Ward 7 has been forgotten about, and we have to make Ward 7 a priority. Thank you very much. God bless you all. We are Ward 7.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Payne.
Thank you, Ward 7 Dems, for having me today. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out on this rainy day to come here and hear from all the candidates. I am not running because this is the next step in my political career. I am not a politician. I am tired of lazy politicians. I have worked with pretty much everyone and seen what they've all accomplished, which really isn't that much. If you are tired of mediocre results, you should stop electing mediocre politicians and try something new. So if you're ready for someone who actually is ready to solve your food desert with local farms and fresh food that your kids can enjoy, vote for Ebony Payne. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. And Ms. Thompson.
So I'm actually going to go a little bit of a different direction. Not because I mean, I know many of you, I've met you, I've shown up for years. Not because I don't actually have a career. Like I have worked nationally. I make a good amount of money. I do good work. I show up and work, but I think it is almost disrespectful to sit here and talk about our community as if the only people who work in Ward 7 or are trying to claim work in Ward 7 are sitting at this table and are your competition. Ward 7 is an actual community. What I know as someone who worked on a community vision for Fletcher Johnson that every single ANC, every single civic association signed on to, is that we actually do know how to work together. We actually do want the best for our community, and we actually can get things done. And I am not going to disrespect myself. I'm not going to disrespect my family. I'm not going to disrespect my community or the ward I want to continue representing by calling any one of you mediocre or any one of my competitors right now mediocre. Because what I know as someone who has already won a ward wide election is that on June 5th, we will all be neighbors and have to work together for Ward 7 again. And so I hope we take a different tone moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Brown.
All right. Well, thank you so much to the Ryland Epworth family, to the Ward 7 Democrats for organizing this very spiritful and engaging conversation. I am running for the Ward 7 council member seat because I know this election is real to me. It was real to me when I moved to Ward 7, when I bought a home here in Ward 7, when I elected and stepped up to become a commissioner and then on to become a chairperson of ANC 7B. My goal as Ward 7 council member is not to stack my resume with another role because I already have a great career with Fannie Mae as a national leader. My role is to make sure that we have innovation. We're thinking outside the box. We're bringing holistic solution to meet people at their greatest needs. And the only way we can do that is by having a leader that's going to really touch the depths of each and every one of our souls and hearts and understand what your needs are and how we can satisfy those that put you on the trajectory to be the best version of yourself that you can be. That's the role of a council member, beyond being a legislator. So on June the 4th, I hope and I humbly ask for your support and I ask for your vote and your prayers, because together we can go far, but as an individual, we can only go fast. And I thank you all for coming out tonight, today, really, to hear from all of the candidates. I thank all the candidates for being here as well. But I do believe with my experience, my passion, my ability to innovate and to develop meaningful solutions, we can change the overall trajectory of Ward 7 and put it on the path to be at parity and better than every ward in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Let's have a hand for our candidates.
All right, thank you all again so much for coming out. Can we give our moderator another round of applause? Thank you. All right, so it is pretty tight in here, but we will need to leave this room as quickly as possible. If you have not participated in the straw poll, please get in line now and do so. It will close at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is very organized. Very organized. This is excellent. This is the best.